Welcome to another episode of Chasing Labels. I am your host, Stephen Billings, and with me, as always, is your other host, Andrew freaking Cabral. How you doing, man?
Doing good, Stephen. We are back here once again for another fun-filled episode. A little bit of a lesser action-packed episode than last
Yeah,
week, which was a 2.5 hour, uh,
I was going to say,
just big one.
if I want to use a Marvel reference, that was Endgame, and now we're back
Nice,
to like one of the solo movies.
very much so. It's kind of one of those aftermath movies that they stuck
Yeah,
afterward that people just to satisfy people,
yeah,
really,
yeah.
just to give them more content.
This is this
Basically,
is.
they
I don't want to say that this is going to be a bad episode, but this is like Thor 3 or something. You know,
Or
like,
like, well, what they kept doing is they kept putting the Ant-Man movies
yeah,
after the
yeah,
big ones,
yeah.
and they were like, "Here you go, have that." But we're back here once again. This is spy number 106, at episode 106, and yeah, it's a bit of an interesting week. We had here the holiday in the middle of the week, which I don't know if that felt weird to you, Steven. Felt a little
Well,
weird
yeah.
to
I mean,
me.
it would have the 4th of July essentially in the middle of the week, whilst people wanted to celebrate on the weekend because that's when most people are off. So it ended up being like a 5-day holiday because every day between that and the 4th, there was fireworks going off in
Oh
some
yeah.
some capacity.
It
Yeah,
was like double celebration,
yeah,
because people probably started celebrating that Friday and then that whole weekend, and then most people took Monday off from work, and if you didn't, you went to work that Monday, and then the next day you went back to celebrating the
yeah,
4th, and then the next day back to work. Very up and down, very yo-yo-ish type of
yeah.
schedule. For me on the 4th, it rained and thunderstormed here all day,
Ooh,
and I lost power for 3 hours.
fan freaking
So,
tastic.
it was just kind of like another regular day for me, but I still didn't know, like, am I supposed to do anything relevant today? Am I not supposed to do anything relevant today? I don't know, but that was my 4th of July.
That's
Um,
not great. Not
Not great.
But,
Not
but we,
not
we we
not
had
too good.
PowerCo out here too, but it wasn't. It was the week before the 4th. We had a night where we had it was out for like 5 or 6 hours, and I was like, good thing this wasn't on a podcast night.
I
Um,
know. That
um,
would've sucked.
yeah, but we played. We had fun. We played a that card game. Is kind of like Cards Against Humanity, but it's with memes.
Oh, I never
Yeah,
heard of that.
yeah, it was fun. We did that for like literally played every meme card and went through the whole game in a night. Yeah,
Nice.
so
Nice. I Board games are very underrated. Um, I don't play them very often anymore just because you can't really play a board game when you're sitting at home by yourself.
sure.
You kind of need people to
Yeah,
do that. But yeah, those card games are lots and lots of fun. But yeah, 5 hours is a long time. It's a long
it
time.
was annoying. We
No, I
were
bet it
like,
was.
oh
I
look,
bet it
we're on
was.
our vacation. Power's out. Cool.
Oh yeah, and
But
you can't even watch movies. It's not like when your internet's out.
yeah,
And luckily,
I can deal
Steven and
with
I
that.
can
Yeah,
can watch movies still.
yeah.
But speaking of watching movies, we did have a special guest this week that was directly related to watching movies, and that was Mistress of the Real.
Yeah,
Um,
AKA
and fascinating
Amelia.
interview.
Amelia
Yes,
is her real
Amelia.
name. But yeah, she's a projectionist out in LA, and just wonderful talking to her. Um, she's very much an advocate for watching uh, you know, things on physical film. She's very much in love with physical film since her college, before her college days. She talks about her grandfather, how she was very influenced by him, and but she was just a delight to talk to. Anytime we meet somebody new that does some, especially for me that worked in the movie theater, that deals in that world that's even higher beyond what I dealt with, is always really fascinating to me, and I know to Andrew. So with that said, please relax your ears. Um, you know, maybe your pizza place nearby is still open. You can get you a pizza. I like pepperonis. Andrew, what do you like?
Pepperoni and mushroom. It's my
Okay,
go-to.
that's not too bad. That's not too. I can deal with mushrooms. So get you a pepperoni mushroom pizza. Get you maybe a nice glass of wine, and listen to our interview with Amelia, aka Mistress of the Real. And so, joining us this week, we're going to get into something I'm really passionate about, something I love because I did spend people that listen to the show. I spent many years working for a movie theater, and this person here is not only a theater manager, but is also a film projectionist. She does. She's got. I've seen some of her old YouTube. She hasn't done YouTube in a while, but I've seen some of her videos. She's throwing film up on herself. She's wearing it as a necklace. She makes some funny videos. But with us today is Amelia Eichler, aka Mistress of the Reel. How you doing?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Well, thank you. It's our pleasure, and yeah, as I said, the theater experience is something we always bring up in here. Is even though this is a physical media podcast where we love our Blu-rays and things like that, I still am very hard on people about, like, if you can go see it in the theater, that should be your first experience of a movie, because it really is like this different level of impactfulness, and like it really makes it important when you go see a movie at the theater. Is that something you believe in as well? I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think that physical film has always made me feel more connected
Yeah.
to the film itself and to the experience. It helps me pay attention. It makes me feel like I'm actually there for an event as opposed to just passively showing up to the theater. And don't get me wrong, digital's fine as well, but there's something very magnetic about physical film and seeing that in a theater and just even handling it.
Yeah, and we got to get more into that tech stuff with handling film, because that's something that not everybody can understand how delicate that is. To do it right, especially with older films that you're reshowing. And but Andrew,
Yes.
talk to us. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. You transitioned into this so well. I didn't want to jump in all of a sudden, but I'm
Please
doing
interrupt
okay.
me.
Yeah, we are very excited because we don't get to talk to people who directly handle film literally very often, and it's a unique experience, and it's also kind of a unique um, tech engineering process. A lot of movies are still shot on film, many shot digitally. I mean, the argument, debate, back and forth between making movies, whether it be shot on digital or shot on film, has been going back and forth for years, and we've seen the shift in the industry vastly over the last 20 years, I would say, with the introduction of digital filmmaking, digital projection. It's very difficult to find theaters nowadays that actually have film projectors, like actual film reel projectors. I mean, I think I've brought this up many times when um, Quentin Tarantino was trying to show, um, I think it was the Hateful Eight. Yeah, I think it was the Hateful Eight, and he wanted to show it in certain amount of theaters, and just some theaters didn't have the technology for it. They didn't have the people to bring in who knew the technology of it. And this was only what, 5 years ago, or no? When did the
Maybe a
Hateful Eight
little
come out,
longer than
Steven?
that.
2016,
Something
15.
like that. Yeah.
But anyway, within the last several years, and and also you have a lot of problems with equipment breaking down and not people not knowing how to handle that situation and whatnot. So there's a whole can of worms that go into this, and I'm fascinated by it, and fascinated by the history of film. We've talked many times in here about the history of film and its many different formats and stuff like that. I mean, every time we talk about aspect ratio, I feel like I have to preface it by saying yeah, aspect ratios have been a thing pretty much since the beginning, but they've also shifted over time, and that's also part of film. But before I digress, we do want to get into Amelia's background and where her love of film started and who she is as a person. That's you just tell us everything, really.
Tell us everything.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I feel like I'm pretty fortunate because I'm from Portland, Oregon, and I don't want to, I'm biased obviously, but it's probably in my mind the third best city in the country
Whoa,
for film.
third?
Yeah,
Okay, so
third.
now I got to know what second
Yeah,
and
who are the
one.
first two?
Well, I guess probably New York, I'd
Okay.
say. Maybe second. Probably first is LA, but maybe Austin's
Okay.
also in there. And I mean, I haven't been all over the country, so I'm a little biased, but I had people around me who were passionate about film from the get-go. I have to shout out my grandpa, who's still alive and kicking. My grandpa is a movie buff,
Yeah.
knows everything about anybody, knows the gaffer on a film, knows who the editor was, you know, he just has like he's an encyclopedia about film. So I grew up with him a lot around I was around him all the time, and he collects lobby cards. So that's how I got into film, and that's why I'm here today. That's what I like to say, even though he doesn't like to admit that he contributed to that. But yeah, I just grew up loving movies, and then he has a friend who he met in the 90s at a video store. Movie Madness, shout out to them. They're still alive and kicking in Portland. You can still rent videos there.
Awesome.
And his friend Gary Locker, shout out to Gary, who's my mentor. He has been a projectionist for 50 years. So I just kind of met Gary over some like tea at a bar in the morning that they go to every Friday. And I just kind of became fascinated with physical film because it wasn't something that was talked about a lot at school. I mean, especially in high school, there wasn't really any film classes where I was. I wanted to originally become an archivist. So that was kind of my route. And then when I met Gary and started talking to him about projection, I was like, you know what? They're handling physical film as well. At least the ones that Gary would talk about, or his personal experience was he was handling film. And I kind of just fell in that, oh, that's the maybe next best thing. If I don't become an archivist, I think this is a good path as well. And I think I just kind of was lucky in that I knew Gary and all these film people in Portland, and that kind of set me on a path towards being a projectionist. And I worked at Portland State University, where I graduated with a film degree, just a general film studies degree. I ran a theater with 4 other students. So Portland State University has one of the only student-run cinemas in the country, and we ran 35 millimeter. First, we started with Platter, and then we started doing only reel-to-reel. And then we did 16, and then we eventually got a DCP so that we could also run some titles that weren't available on film anymore. But that was the gateway. I only took it because I was like, oh, I'm going to touch physical film, and maybe this will help me as, you know, like kind of a resume builder for archiving. But then I just kind of got swept away into the world of projection and running a theater. And I think that was meeting Gary was one very big event in my life. And then 2 was working at Fifth Avenue Cinema for Portland State University.
That's great. That's
That's
it.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I love hearing that, you know, like there's hope for, you know, I have a daughter that's about to turn 1, and I think about, you know, hopefully I can rub off on her. I'm hoping that film becomes important for her, and maybe she can do more than I could do. You know, and whatever it is, a projectionist, whatever, you know, making films. Well, I don't care what it is, just as long as she loves films, so I can share that with her. I just love hearing that. And, you know, it's even cooler, you know, it's a generation past your parents, you know, your grandfather being the one that influenced you is really cool to hear. And yeah, tell me about the, you know, running a theater experience, because that's something I can relate with you definitely on. What were would you say some of the hardest things about running a theater? I mean, for me, I'm sure
gosh.
the booking is one of the tough things, especially with showing film.
Yeah, I mean, when we ran a theater, and
Yeah.
it was supposed to be a student job that was like part-time, but there's no way to run a theater part-time. I mean, it's just not possible. And we were somewhat unsupervised when we were supposed to be more supervised. So there was a lot of times I was working until like midnight, 2 a.m., you know, testing the film, running it through the projector, making sure it works. But I mean, the hardest thing, first of all, was I had walked in there without handling any film really before at all.
Wow.
So it's like just kind of like a new door opening, and that could be kind of intimidating or scary. And you think that going to film school that you would be taught more about physical film or like interact with physical film more, but no, it was like one slide in a presentation, the first week of class. It's not really looked at or explained, or it's just kind of swept under the rug a little bit. So that was really intimidating. And also just getting used to hearing the sounds, knowing what's a good sound from a projector and film running through and what's a bad sound. Just being very hyper aware, because the booth is a place where you need to be like, have all your senses, like be very hyper aware, know if something smells wrong, sounds wrong, looks wrong, and just kind of be on your toes. And I think that if you're very passionate about film, I think anybody can project, I think. It is a skill, but if you have that passion and willingness to learn, I think that it's very achievable to become a projectionist. But yeah, the booking was hard too, because a lot of distributors have a lot of rules about booking, which makes sense, especially as film prints are more scarce. You don't want to just lend out your prints to anybody. But
especially if they knew that it was somebody that has just started. You said you just started handling film, so at the beginning,
even just
it
the
had to be
idea that it's
scary.
just the idea that it's like a student-run thing, and it's not, let's say,
these crazy kids.
It's not like
doing all this
it's not
craziness.
it's not a film festival, or it's not something that's like maybe like an IFC center or something like that. They're just like, oh, it's a film, so maybe they are more hesitant to hand over their film canisters to young people, I guess.
Which
seems
is
a little snooty.
very fair. I mean, it's fair to some extent. The hard part about that is that in order to learn, I have to run film.
Exactly.
Right.
But because it's more scarce, it's a little bit harder to just get in front of a projector and say, okay, I'm going to learn how to be a projectionist now. And Portland State University, although it's an amazing film program and I loved going there, but it's not a prestigious film school. I mean, it doesn't have a lot of money. It's not like University of Southern California, where everyone's like, that's one of the top film schools. So there was some of that, and distributors want trust. They want to be able to trust you, and trust takes years to build up. And when you're working this job, you're only working until you graduate. So once you're graduating, the turnover is pretty high. So it was kind of a battle of trying to earn the trust and, be communicating with them, explaining what our processes were with running film and how we clean the projectors, how we inspect the film, and just kind of trying to improve the cinema in the 4 years that we're there. But it is sad to have to leave. Like, you built up this thing before I left, someone this is way before I started working there, but some projectionists who worked there ruined 2 prints from Universal back to back. He threaded a reel backwards. I don't even know how you do that, but I guess he did that. And Universal said, nope, you got to pay for this, for us to restrike the reel, and also you never get our prints again. And so right before I left, I had finally convinced Universal to get us prints again. And it's unfortunate that I didn't get to stick around, and I trained the people I trained when I left and was like, good luck. But it's hard. It's really hard to have that relationship.
Of course,
it sounds like a presidency. A president comes in and he gets a 4-year term, and it's like, well, they're either gonna like me or I'm gonna improve something or I'm not. You
don't get much time to work with, and for people who who do go to college or universities or whatnot, the 4 years can go by very fast. It can go by very, very fast. And even looking back in hindsight, it can seem like it went by even faster. Maybe a bit of a blur for many people and whatnot. But I wanted to ask you, what type of films did you show while you were a projectionist there?
We also got to ask, what was the first one? Do you remember your first film you did on?
No, that's.
Do you want to? Should it be like first film I inspected, or first film that I projected all by myself, or is there
both? Please.
Okay. Well, when I started shadowing, they had just ran Blue.
Okay.
And which is a funny film to kind of witness, because it's just a blue frame, like that's the and voiceover. so it's a little hard to focus because
For those
there's
listening,
nothing to go off of.
yeah, for those listening, that's Kieslowski's Blue, I assume. Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
yeah, and yeah, yeah. Wow, what an interesting movie to project, especially
The
with the lack of dialogue to kind of
the
learn
yeah,
from.
the first film I took an actual, like, picture of a frame of was, Big Trouble in Little China.
Cool.
That was super fun, but that was when we were plattering, and so I was inspecting a little less because obviously your main goal is for I'm sure we'll explain technically what platter is in a little bit, but, you're just trying to get the film on the platter. You're not really, like, feeling for splices, it's not as, thorough of an
Yeah, I think you'll
inspection.
have to explain what inspecting is as well. I'm just
Let's
for our
backtrack.
audience, of course.
That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
our
Yeah,
audience, of
please,
course.
please break down your whole job, please.
Yeah, exactly. I'm assuming inspecting involves inspecting.
Yeah,
That's
so for, like, inspecting, it's making sure the film leader has the Academy countdown, so the numbers that help me frame and, have the film ready, to start the film. And then the cue marks, checking for cue marks, there, should be 11 feet between 2 cues, which are usually those cigarette burns, those dots.
yeah.
And, there are usually 4 frames of cues, and then the feet, and then another 4 frames, and then that usually, will sync with the next reel, so you're basically switching back and forth, and you use the 2 cues as your visuals. And then just making sure the reels are taped down properly, they're labeled, it doesn't say tail, which is the end of a reel, the kind of protector leader of the actual film reel. That says tail 5 and it's actually reel 2, making sure everything is in order and, making sure what the soundtrack is. Is it mono? Is it Dolby Digital, Dolby SR, A-type? And then also what aspect ratio it is in, which is pretty easy to identify from, like, seeing the first frame, and it usually say on the reel if it's labeled correctly.
Yeah.
So, we would check for sound type and for aspect ratio because we needed to know that to project, but we weren't checking for splices, which is, the film, uh, one 2 ends of a film are not together and you need to splice it with tape, using a
I
splicer.
I actually have one of them devices in this room. Um,
Ooh.
Yes.
I took okay. So the theater I used to work at was closing down, and I snuck in there and took some stuff.
Yes.
I can bring I can when I get a chance I'll go
Yeah.
and get it and I'll bring it on here and
Speaking
so
of,
people
you
can.
mentioned, projecting wrong reels at the wrong time. Stephen, I don't know if you remember the story that you told me years ago. I think it was one of the Pirates of the Caribbean films where didn't you guys
Yeah.
project it the wrong way?
Well, I didn't do it.
Not you, but the people
Somebody
that
else
worked in the
built the
theater.
movie up, and they built the movie up in the wrong order. Like the
I've
reels
done
were,
that.
Mm.
yeah. It was like it was like the middle of the. It was like maybe like 45 minutes into the movie, and the movies are long. So 45 minutes in, suddenly we were in the last reel of the movie, and it was like the climax. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, where did this ship come from? And it's now got an octopus going through it. Like what? So that happened, and then we had to wait like at
Oh
least
my
an hour
gosh.
for them to break it down and build it back up again.
Yeah, I
So that we
remember
could finish
doing
it.
that with, Precious,
Yeah.
and,
Oh,
one minute she was, just having a dialogue scene, and the next reel when I switched where it didn't really switch over, but it went to the next reel, she had a baby all of a sudden, and we're
You
like,
just ruined that whole movie for people.
Where'd the baby come from?" But it only thankfully, it was only in front of the staff because we were testing the film.
Yeah.
But then it, like, took me 2 hours to take the film off the platter and put it back in the right order, and it was snowing outside, and it was, like, midnight, and it was
Mhm.
awful.
oh, gee.
That's
So
rough. It's rough. Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
there seems to be projecting film seems to be very involved, literally from the getting the elements stage to having the elements in your hand, the film, and to putting it together or inspecting it literally, and then if there's something wrong, you have to fix it. So it seems like there's so much to do even before you get to the actual projecting of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, with platter, at least when I say building up, which Steven knows, but building up is basically like you're attaching each reel to the end
Yeah.
of the neck of the previous reel. You know, once that's done and you test it and run it through the platter, it's the idea is it's supposed to be, you know, self-threaded. You don't really have to like stay. The idea is you don't have to stay there and watch it, although something could go wrong and then you have someone coming out of the theater and is like, "Hey, the film's not on the screen."
That's how most theaters would work. Like if suddenly the screen started turning into a burn mark and you're like, "Oh, yeah, well, I guess you need to run up there and stop the projector and fix it." And then you just splice, you would just cut off the bad parts and then put it back together.
Yeah, I
And
mean
then
that
get going
happens
again.
with digital projection as well. Like there's problems with those too. I remember.
I think with digital, it tends to be more sound problems. I feel like.
Oh,
And
I've had sound sync
like,
problems.
yeah.
Yeah.
That happened during Ford v Ferrari. When I saw that in the theater a couple of years ago. When I went to see Rogue One, um, the movie started like a couple of minutes into the movie already. Like it had skipped a whole part and then it had started already. I think
Somebody was already watching that movie and they just didn't
maybe
rewind
they
it.
just
Enough.
started at the wrong part.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like after the introduction, um, but then like some people had to go out and tell them like, "Hey, this is not right," and
Well,
then they had to
to be honest,
start it again.
well, to be honest, nowadays, from what I understand, a lot of there is no person. It's like on a
I was actually going to ask
automatic.
if it's on a timer or
It's
something.
on an automatic system. A lot of they don't even need to be people up there really that much. Like,
Yeah, you can like loop playlists and just have the playlist continue.
yeah,
You know, I mean, I guess that's also the idea is that it's so that someone can go start the playlist and then walk away and go do a million other tasks.
yeah,
But platter is involved at the beginning and the end because then when you have to break down the film and put it back on the reels, it's like another 2 hours.
yeah,
As opposed to just doing changeover, it's nice. You just have to rewind the reel when it comes off the projector and then just put it in the canister. I mean, when I found that out, I was like, "Oh my god, it's so much nicer." I
It's
don't
so
have
much
to
easier.
stay on a Sunday,
Mm.
and after the movie's done, the matinee, I have to say, "Oh, I can leave. No, wait, I have to break down this print for another 2 to 3 hours.
hmm
Can't wait."
yeah. I have horror stories like when the theater I worked at was in its heyday, and it was like, and there was no like online ticket sales where there was literally still lines that would be waiting outside. There was only at the time when I was there was only one person that knew how to do it, and it was
Yeah.
our manager, and he was not a good manager. He was terrible.
Mm.
And there was one day where I think it was like, it might've been a Harry Potter movie. And so it was huge line outside, people coming in, and we were like, where's the movie? Oh, still in the canisters, not built up yet. And this movie was supposed to start like 30 minutes. And he like finally showed up, built up the movie was in an hour, like within an hour. Like we got it started like maybe 15, 20 minutes late. But God,
Yeah.
like just it is involved. Even the platter system is supposed to be off hands, like you said
Yeah.
during the showing. It's still a very involved thing, and I miss it, man. I miss that, like you say, that tangibility, that feeling, that understanding that it's there's something happening up there that's organic and not
Yeah.
just like this like digital thing that you can just do at home anyway. Like it's not making that different really,
Yeah.
other than it's just on a bigger screen.
Yeah.
So
It's like, high risk, high reward.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I understand. I think honestly, what people, of course, like a lot of things, we take things for granted. We lose that sight of why that's important as technology, changes things, and the generations, make it, they grow it with different things. And I just think that, also, of course, the experience of just being in the theater has turned people off as well, not turning off cell phones. That's also been an unfortunate side effect that's caused that theater experience to diminish a little bit. But I think where you're at, which I believe in Los Angeles, it's a pretty heavy, film going experience, especially on film, right?
Yeah, especially at the repertory theaters. You
Yeah.
know, I haven't gone to like a Regal or a Cinemark or a big chain theater, but it doesn't definitely those places don't really have that kind of showmanship or like we're going to an event. This is an event.
Yeah.
This is an experience, and most people here are pretty good. I mean, sometimes people can be a little, and I think this has to do with some of the pandemic, not to bring the pandemic in here, but it is here. I think people have just come out a little different from the pandemic in terms of communal experiences, and like they kind of demand things to be more convenient and like quick.
Yeah.
And so I think they just have maybe more high expectations that things are easy now and more convenient because of digital, that like, why is this so difficult? Like, your job isn't that difficult. It's easy. Why isn't this just happen? Why isn't the film just on the screen? All you have to do is push a button.
Mm.
And so I think, you know, I haven't experienced it here as much, but I think some people are a little more demanding after the pandemic, in term which they have a right to be demanding for some extent, like out of their movie going experience. But it is difficult, especially when there's technical problems that arise digitally or, with film. I just kind of know how to problem solve film issues a little bit more than digital issues.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, people are paying their hard-earned money to go see something, and they expect things to be seamless. But I think, honestly, I think we can all agree, as we get older, we got to understand that disappointment happens everywhere, and it's going to happen with our entertainment as well. So
Very
people,
true.
I think people
Yeah.
need to have maybe a little bit better emotional, stability when it comes to stuff like that. I think you got to understand that it's something that's going to happen. Mistakes happen all the time in anything that we do, and people need to be a little bit more empathetic when it comes to stuff like that.
Especially in a public forum like that, there seems to be, this was even before COVID times, before pandemic times. I think a lot of that was happening, obviously, but it feels like there's such a lack of social awareness, or just like movie theater going decorum, I think is a word or a phrase that I tried to coin. It's just like people really didn't understand how to act in theaters. I remember this was when I went to see um Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. People almost got in fistfights before the movie even started, sitting in the theater, be, over just yelling at each other for things, like someone was on their cell phone during the previews or something like that, or people have been fighting over trying to save seats for people for years. Like, that's still a thing. I think that's why they introduced um reserved seating and stuff like that now, just to kind of get rid of those things. Like, I know they just kind of institute a lot of that here in most theaters that just had the old style, like pick your seat when you get here, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That reserved seating has become more commonplace now, specifically because a lot of people buy their tickets online or on their phones, and they want to do that. They just come in, go straight to the ticket person, and then go right in or whatnot. So it's a lot more convenient, but it does also kind of connect with what Amelia was saying, or what Steven was saying. People want things to be faster, easier, more convenient, quicker, getting to point A to point B very, very fast, especially when it comes to everything in life.
I call that fast food. That means it's not going to be new. There ain't. I say that about streaming, is that it's like the fast food of movie going experience or TV experience. Like, it's all about getting it in, but you're not getting what you need from it. Like, you're not getting the nutrients that you can get from something if you don't take the time.
We've talked about things on here for a while about like quality and stuff like that. When we talked about what's the quality you're like getting on streaming versus the quality you're getting in theater versus the quality you're getting on the physical media side with Blu-ray and 4K and all that stuff now. What's interesting is David Sandberg, who of course directed the two Shazam movies, but of course he started out in horror. He just did on his Instagram a like side by side comparison of the different formats on physical media and digitally, where he would put up screenshots and zoomed in to check the pixels on the version of the new Shazam: Fury of the God that was available on iTunes, Vudu, Blu-ray, DVD, and 4K, and streaming on HBO Max, and he would bring them all up to compare which one has the quality, what the difference in quality is, and the difference in quality vary depending on the format in which you see it. Now, I know a lot of people don't care about that at all, but it's just something I find very interesting. How what Steven is saying is the consumption of fast food, that idea is that it's quick, it's easy, it's consumable, and then you can just move on to something else. And that is really kind of what streaming has been selling itself on now for years.
Mhm.
And I know, Amelia, you did a whole thesis about streaming versus physical media. I
Yes.
noticed your pinned tweet. That's where I got that from. So don't think I did any deep diving whatsoever. But that is a fascinating idea that you brought up seemingly years ago, before this kind of explosion of streaming versus physical media was kind of even things people talked about regularly.
Yeah, and, I have to say I love convenience too, so don't get me
Of
wrong,
course.
Yeah.
Of course.
but yeah, and when I wrote the thesis and I had to not necessarily, it wasn't defending the thesis, but I had to present it in front of all the honors people, part of the honors college at Portland State. They didn't, I mean, not everyone, but a few people just didn't really get it, To them, it was like more about, again, the convenience. They were saying, "Oh, but what you're saying doesn't make sense because what if I want to watch a movie on a plane?" And I'm like, I'm not talking about like watching movies in different places. I'm talking about how you're going to have access to this stuff in the future, which,
Yes.
as we've seen, and of course, my thesis is quote unquote dated now because I stopped working on it in
I would call it
2019, but
I would call
you
it
know,
prophetic, really, because like you were just saying, 2019 is only 4 years ago, but it might as well be light years in terms of the way we consume entertainment now. Um, and I feel like it's prophetic in the sense that, you know, um, the pandemic, I think, escalated streaming to a point
oh yeah,
that was going to be spread out over years, and it pushed it to the forefront right away. 4 years ago, I don't even think we had half of the streaming services that are available now. I mean, just
yeah,
within the last 3 years, between 2020 and now, you've got Paramount Plus, you have HBO Max, which is now Max, you've got Disney Plus, you've
Disney.
got all kinds of other ones that I can't like pop off the top of my head, but there's so many now. And it really pushed that all the way to the forefront. And now I've said this so many times, and I'm glad we can bring this up one more time. That bubble that expanded so vastly is
mm,
shrinking now, and we're seeing the
yeah,
repercussions of it. Business wise, definitely, we're seeing the repercussions of it. We're seeing
yeah,
the studios having to make drastic cuts to
and
their
tax payoffs.
yeah, like that. They're not only that, but they're getting rid of content. They couldn't get enough of it before. They were
Yeah,
giving out content to everybody, just like, you want a show, we'll give it to you. We're gonna turn this idea into a TV series or a movie that's gonna stream directly on here. Then we're gonna sell it to our consumers, and then that's how we're gonna sell the
mhm,
product. And then I guess the dust cleared, and we've got. Wait a minute, we're
yeah,
billions of dollars in debt. What did we
yeah.
do?
Everyone's scratching their head like, "What just happened?" Like,
Yeah.
and a lot of people who are making these shows and all of a sudden their shows are pulled and they're like, "Wait, I don't own a copy of my show." I mean, I understand you get swept up in this huge, like, storm of, "Okay, this is the biggest new thing." I mean, it's happened so many times throughout history. It's happened with sound, any new technological innovation, people just get swept away. And then once it clears, they're like, "Wait a minute. We didn't really have to actually get swept away. We could have just like put on a life vest and like doggy paddled for a while,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
and it would
now
have
but
been okay."
yeah. But now it's, it was kind of increment over time. It's like we went from black and white to color, we went from silent to sound, we went from, Academy aspect ratio to now CinemaScope and VistaVision and all this kind of stuff. And then 3D, we'll kick in 3D.
Yeah.
And
3D
then
keeps 3D won't die. It keeps coming
yeah, I
back.
bring it up all the time just to piss off Steven because he
Yeah,
hates it so much. But 3D doesn't die. It just comes and goes every like couple of decades. That's my theory
yeah,
of the whole thing. But it was kind of gradual. But then now with the way in which our society, the way in which the industry is kind of structured, everything is accelerated so fast, and they pour in so much money all at once to boost these things and get them off the ground, that the repercussions are now so drastic. But it is kind of what Amelia was saying. These creators, these people who directors, writers, producers, actors, whatnot, they poured their time and energy and life into a lot of these works, and then now they're just gone. Yeah, you know what I mean? And
And now we have
because it's only available digitally, it
yeah.
is gone. Granted, there is
And now we
piracy and
and now
stuff
we
like
got all
that.
these strikes happening. So
Yeah.
it's where we're at now.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, and
it's and I didn't predict obviously because I'm not a writer, I'm not a showrunner or anybody involved. I'm not part. I don't ever want to be in production ever. Like, so not my wheelhouse. But I didn't even predict that that would happen either. I didn't even consider like I was mostly thinking of the consumer and the viewers as like my main concern of how are they going to access these films that they once had access to when we are so reliant on streaming. But yeah, it with all these strikes and all, people AI now, it's like so much.
It's
And I think
it's weird.
film is like a nice like physical film is a nice solace for me, you know?
Mm.
Um, it's patient,
right.
it's slow, it's not gonna happen quick. And sometimes it's a slow process and you can get frustrated, but there always is a huge reward for me at the end, and I feel like I've done something.
Yeah.
Like with
Right.
DCP, I run DCP more often than film at my full-time job at USC, and I don't feel like I do anything. And I know that's not true. Like I am doing like technical things, but I really just feel like I am hitting play.
Yeah.
Right.
And I do problem solve, I do AV, but like it's rare that I walk away from a screening and I'm like, "Wow, look at me. I'm so proud of myself that I hit that server button and I ingested that DCP." But the more I've been projecting at my second side job with Secret Movie Club, I just feel like when I'm inspecting and when I'm projecting, I just feel like I walk away with more like pride and
Yeah.
feeling like I actually did something and actually like made people happy.
Yeah.
Um, and I felt like we were all rewarded in some way. Like
Yeah.
Well,
I was
you know,
rewarded by projecting it. They were rewarded
yeah.
by watching it.
I mean, and who probably loves to hear that? The filmmakers.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
like like that it's not just being thrown out there and forgotten, but that there's people that actually, even if they haven't even seen your movie, that they care enough to take the time, inspect it, do all them things. And then even if you don't love the film, you felt rewarded doing all that process to get it done. Because I
Yeah.
think that's what lost, as we've talked about a little bit as a theme here, is that this quick satisfaction thing, I think, takes away all the reward that you can really gain mentally from a lot of things in life, when you're
Yeah.
trying
Right.
to do it fast. And I mean, even though it's not the same, but like even with our Blu-rays and DVDs, instead of, saying, okay, I want to watch Billy Madison right now.
Hmm.
Well, instead of just popping it on Netflix, I'm going to go downstairs, get my disc, find it somewhere, find it. I don't keep it. It's not organized. So I have to go look through my shelves and find Billy Madison. And finally, after about 15 minutes, I find it. It's a
Right.
thing, and then I find it, I take it. I'm like, man, I've had this for years. And I look at it and I'm
Yeah.
like, look at the back of the case.
Well,
Look,
there's usually, to be
it's a
honest,
process.
yeah, to be honest, there's also a kind of I mean, it really all depends on what type of collector you are, or what type of film fan you are, or whatever the case may be. But I just can speak from my own perspective. I think, most of what I have in my collection, there's kind of a story behind each one of them. A unique story unto myself, like how did I get it? Where did I get it? What were the circumstances behind it? Why is it in my collection? You know what I mean? Is it directed by someone I like? Is it starring someone I like? What's why is this edition so good? You know what I mean? Why do I own it? I mean, and a lot of that goes into my thought process as how I curate my collection. But there's also that's kind of the extra additive to it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The extra fun of it. It makes you feel part of
Engaged.
something bigger,
Yeah.
engaged.
Engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes you do take a sense of pride, like Steven was saying. And I know there's a lot of people who, I mean, you just take too much pride in certain things, but whatever the case may be, you need a little positivity in your life.
Definitely.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's
And we have to get into your collecting, because I see your collecting habits are behind you. And that's a little bit, that's beyond me. I don't think I can collect physical reels of a film,
I
but
do want to know where you get them from. So
yeah.
so please do tell.
So, okay. I one warning. I'm actually I'm at work.
Oh, okay. This isn't
This
yours.
is the inspection room at work. So that's
Oh, okay.
why I wish I had this rewind at my apartment. I could maybe fit it in my apartment. No, but I do have at least 3 60mm projectors. I have maybe a handful of Super 8 and 8mm projectors. You always got to have a backup in case.
Of course.
But yeah, I have mostly 16 because that's the easiest to collect. I do have, I'd say at least, oh gosh, I do have more than 5 reels of 35. I have a copy of Pleasantville on 35. I have a
Nice.
copy of 2001. It's faded though, so it's not. I mean,
Oh yeah.
but it's there. I have a print.
Nice.
It's pretty red and pink, but
You can
maybe
still- you
Kubrick
can
would have
still-
wanted it that way. Who knows?
Yeah, you could still gloat about it.
Yeah. Matilda, I have on 35, and I have a part of a Dean Martin film. Who's that lady? I don't know where the other 3 reels are. I couldn't find them in the hoarder house that I was taking these reels from.
Well, you got to tell us about. I know you're a huge fan of Dean Martin, so please tell us about
Oh
why.
gosh.
Please tell us why you love Dean Martin so much.
Okay, well, for everyone who doesn't know, I obviously have his name tattooed on my arm.
All right.
Nice.
It was his birthday the other day, so shout out to him. I love you, Dean Martin.
So wait, how old are you? You didn't like date him at some point?
No,
And you
Dean
get your
Martin hasn't
tattoo.
been around
No,
for
I'm
a
just
while.
I wish. No, actually, probably wouldn't have been a good relationship. But I'm 26 for anyone who wants to know.
Oh, okay.
I
thought we were going to be closer in age because of the movies you said you collected on physics. I was like, oh, she's probably like right around my age, in mid 30s. But now you're a little younger than us.
Well,
See, this inspires me even more that you're younger than me and you're way more of a film nerd than I am.
Well,
so, yeah.
Well, the thing is, I've been saying this all the time. Movies, you can come to them at any age, really.
Exactly.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of movies. You can be 20 and watch a movie that came out 100 years ago. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's great.
But
Please go on. Please continue.
Well, it's kind of a little bit sad. So in high school, I didn't have a lot of friends, which I now kind of realize and I'm not blaming it on this, but I have ADHD. I was undiagnosed, as most adult women find out that they were not diagnosed. And I had kind of a little issue with socializing my interests. I would hyper focus on them. So, a lot of other kids weren't really interested in Dean Martin in middle school with me. I couldn't really find it. So I kind of just saw his music and television show and his movies as kind of my security blanket. I don't know. They just made me really happy. Just like his personality, how goofy he is, made me really happy. And after 5 years of debating a tattoo, I finally got a tattoo because I felt like 5 years is a good amount of time to think about getting some man's name tattooed on your body.
Yeah.
So, and that's how I got the tattoo, and he still has a very important place in my heart. And people think that the tattoo is my name for some reason. They'll read it, they'll say Dream on, and I'm like, no, it's Dean Martin. It's not my name. It's not it's not a phrase.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have so many records of his. I have some of his movies. I have obviously those 3 reels from one of his movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love God. I used to have a cardboard cutout of him. I lost that.
It's almost like my obsession with Nicolas Cage, except I don't have a standee.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah.
I think many film fans, diehard film fans, have their favorites that they're
of course
maybe not obsessed with, but maybe they're just big fans of.
I haven't gotten a tattoo of Nicolas Cage yet, but
no,
maybe
I feel
will.
like it's coming.
I might. But have you ever had a problem with if you were in a relationship with somebody and they saw that you had a name tattooed on you, that they were like, wait, is this like an X, or they didn't know who Dean Martin was?
But I've always I don't know, I'm very open, so I've always, obviously they see it, because if I'm wearing not a long sleeve shirt, they'll see it. So I kind of just explain it outright, but I've had other men go up to the men that I'm dating and saying, doesn't that bother you that there's a dead Italian American's musician's name on your girlfriend's arm, and they're
Yeah.
like, no, that's like weird to like be upset about, but okay.
He's
It's usually
dead.
other men being insecure for them about like my tattoo.
I think it says more about their insecurities than
Yeah.
yours or your partners or whomever.
The other more depressing thing that I've gotten from this is because of where it's tattooed, which is on my arm right here, people who are Jewish have been like, "Oh, that's where you have the Holocaust numbers. Like that's where people from the Holocaust had their numbers like put on their arm." And I'm like, "Well, I didn't really consider I didn't
I mean,
consider
I have
that."
I have a similar spot too, but I don't.
Yeah,
You know.
as long as it's not numbers, I can't speak obviously for the Jewish community, but I know they have a significant problem with numbers specifically in that area. I know a lot of people did that for the character of 11 on Stranger Things. A lot of people went and got that tattoo in the exact spot where you're not supposed to, or they were or was considered insensitive. I know that was an issue, and they some people did that with Rocket Raccoon from the new Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, where they would get his name or his number name tattooed on them in that spot as well. And I'm like, it's an odd spot to do that. And
it's
just
funny. I don't know why I chose this spot. I really don't remember the thought process.
Because you can just, it's easy just to show off. It's like a sleeve.
The thing, I think for a lot of people, I think they think about what is, I don't know, but it's not everybody, but they think about what is the least painful place they could get the tattoo for the first time. And honestly, that's usually a place where there's a little more muscle. There's it's not
it hurt when it got towards the veins.
Yeah.
That was a little bit of but I just actually got a Gremlins tattoo recently.
Oh, nice.
I got a Gizmo tattoo.
Nice.
I have a film reel right here on my arm, which you can't see.
I have
Oh
one
my god, I love that.
Yeah. And it's got blood around it, and in the blood it says "Get busy living or get busy dying" from Shawshank.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it hurts down here, like
I'm sure.
Closer to get to that
skin is soft down there. Yeah, that skin is soft down there.
I love. I've wanted to add. I want to do a whole sleeve of film stuff, but I'm just being so picky about what I want to.
It's got to be Nicolas Cage.
Well, Nick Cage's got to be in there somewhere.
It's got to be. You know what? Nicolas Cage as Superman. Why not?
Why would I do that?
I don't know.
Hell no. I'm not. That image isn't going to be on my body. But
I just watched Peggy Sue Got Married recently.
Oh goodness!
And I cried a lot.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, this is so sad. Like alone in my apartment.
I was watching Renfield because it's on that convenient Peacock now, and he is just killing it in that movie. He's so awesome in that movie
as Dracula.
Yeah,
I'm glad you finally got to see it.
Yeah, he's soaking it up in that movie, and he's having so much fun. And I'm glad that he's getting more work.
Yeah, I know that Blu-ray, the Blu-ray for that just came out, so it is available now. We got to talk to the director actually back when
we talked to Chris McKay. Yeah,
back in Stephen, was it
March?
Yeah, March. We talked to him, and we were one of the first interviews that he did. Super nice guy, Chris McKay.
Yeah,
really
he was
awesome.
here for a Q&A at work, and we had the studio brought vampire teeth to give out to people.
Nice.
So I have like a few on my desk because it's like I don't want to wear them because they hurt my gums.
Oh yeah,
but I really want to keep them and not throw them away, so they're kind of just sitting there as memories of our screening. One tattoo I do want to get, going back to projectors, is there's a projector that I really love called Simplex XL projector. Yeah. That was my first projector I learned on, and probably my favorite projector. So I want to get the Simplex like logo that you see on like the projector or the trade magazines somewhere. I'm not sure where, but that's my next goal.
Awesome. Yeah, they're just so expensive. Yeah. I spend all my money on Blu-rays, so I don't have extra money.
Very true.
And I got a baby, so I
you have adult responsibilities.
I got stuff to do, but it's
like a regular person.
As your tattoo says, you got to get busy.
Get busy.
I'm gonna die soon, or I'm gonna die. But please, so we said you do obviously have some actually physical film in your collection, but do you have any Blu-rays? Do you do any of that collecting?
Oh yeah. So it's very funny you mentioned that, because my boyfriend actually used to work for Warner Archive.
Oh, okay.
So we have hundreds of Blu-rays because
Wow. Yeah.
Jealous.
he took home so many Blu-rays when he left. And so we're buried in Blu-rays. If you ever need a Blu-ray, let me know.
Oh, okay. But yeah, it just if there's any Warner Archive we're missing, we
I
can
don't.
just reach out to her.
I coincidentally have Warner Archive stuff around me, so we're in the
Yeah.
right place.
We have. Oh, I have that. Yeah, I have that
Rachel,
Blu-ray.
yeah.
Yeah.
Ironically, I mean, we just mentioned all-time like favorites. Paul Newman's my favorite actor of all time, so I'm trying to get all of his work, including the work he
Nice.
directed. And this is one of the movies he directed. So I picked that up. I was actually looking at Warner Archive stuff over like recently, just because there's just such a catalog of it, and they come out with new ones every month, and I'm like, what have I missed? What have I missed? What are
Well,
some
just
gems I
reach
need to
out to
get?
her, man. She's got the
Yeah.
she's got the
She
whole
got the
back
hookup
catalog.
apparently.
He
Jeez.
did some of the menus. You know, he did some of the social media for Warner Archive. So yeah, we have a lot of Blu-rays. I have a lot of DVDs. Now I have both the Blu-ray and DVD for some titles because it just happened that he had that, and I was like, oh cool, I got an upgrade for free. And my goal is to eventually, it's so dorky, but have a Laserdisc player because I have Laserdiscs, and get a CED player. Like I just want every format possible. Like I want Blu-ray, DVD, I mean, even audio, like 8-track. I want everything.
That's awesome. You're gonna need more space probably.
Yeah,
space for all that.
Yeah.
Space and the technology to hook all that stuff up. I actually had that idea years ago. Did I say it on the podcast? Maybe I told Steven. I don't remember.
Who knows?
I think I said it on here before. So please. Well, I had the idea when I was making upgrades to my home entertainment center that I kind of wanted that same idea. Like I wanted a Laserdisc player. I still have my VCR. I want to have that out as well. And then I kind of abandoned all that when the research of it kind of was overwhelming a bit, especially with Laserdiscs and things like that. The thing is, Laserdiscs they're not expensive really. You can find them pretty cheaply online. I know I found a bunch, like I think I have like Jurassic Park on Laserdisc, Ghostbusters, maybe 2001, a bunch of ones that I picked up off of eBay with the idea that I was going to use them. But now they're just kind of collector's item collecting dust. But a lot of people have that setup, like you were saying, where they've got every single format from forever. It's overwhelming.
I've seen that more in video games. Like I've seen guys that I know that have every video game system going back just to have them all, like so they could play Frogger on like 5 different
I still have my
formats.
original NES. I tried to get it running about maybe 10 years ago, and I couldn't get it running. I even bought like replacement parts for it and tried to hook that up, and that was part of the same time where I was trying to kind of get all that set up. But then I kind of just shifted.
Yeah. I just use an emulator. I mean,
what people do.
I'm a bad person.
No, you're a smart person.
No. You still show films. You're not. You're not.
I wish I had I wish I knew more about emulators, because retro gaming, this is physical media. Is it part of physical media? Retro gaming and those old consoles and all that kind of stuff. There's a whole vast history behind all of that I know we kind of all lived through but weren't really aware of. Like I just kind of found out in my adult life, like there was a whole rivalry between Nintendo and Sega back in the 90s, and I'm like, I lived through that. I don't remember any of that. Granted, I was a little kid at the time and I had both systems.
You took it for granted.
You weren't supposed to know. You weren't supposed to know. I mean, there was no internet really then, so it was like
that's also true. There was no real information.
There's a good tie-in between video game. I mean, I see it as my film adjacent hobby in some ways, because I mean there are games that were like, I don't know, you guys probably know about Night Trap, but they filmed Night Trap on 35, and then so you're watching a 35 millimeter like print that was scanned and then made into a video. I don't know, it's crazy. I'm like, holy shit, like I didn't even know I could have this crossover. But the thing about digital, one funny thing is, I mean, I know there's a pro and con about digital, and there's always a debate, like you said earlier, Andrew, about digital or versus film. And I know everything has a pro and con, and it really is like up to the individual and like what they want. But man, there's so many times throughout my time, even at USC, where digital fails me every time. Like it just, for example, like last night I ran M on a 35, totally beat up print, looked like someone ran over it with a car and punched it a little bit. Just a lot of scratches, multiple cue marks, splices everywhere, part of frames missing. But it ran through fine. People loved the film. They had a great time. And then we were supposed to run the Testament of Dr. Mabuse digitally on a DCP, a Barco projector. Barco projector wouldn't power on. Wouldn't come on.
So
Had to cancel the screening.
Oh.
Like, I'm not a technician. I don't know. Like, if I went and opened up a digital projector, I would just be looking at a bunch of wires and a bunch of, I'm like,
you got to become an electrician then, like
yeah,
it's
or an engineer.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not an engineer. I mean, that's the nice thing about film. If a splice broke, okay, take each reel, put it on the bench, splice it, okay, rethread it, okay.
It's
and
it's more about just having power. You just need power.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but it feels like when we're talking about analog technology, it's more hands-on. Like everything like is there in front of you to see. You know what I mean? You like you said, if a reel breaks and you have to reattach it, you see it, reattach it, or whatever. When it comes to digital stuff, you can't really see it. You kind of have to work with the technology, and sometimes the technology doesn't work with you. So you're kind of stuck.
And it can be as simple as, I saw another projectionist on Twitter say this to me. They were just having this talk with their other coworker that with digital, it could be something as simple as, oh, this wasn't plugged in, to we have to go in the server and there's all these settings in the server, and then it gets to like very complex, like you said, engineering or like computer science, and I'm not that person that knows that stuff. And I know with film projectors, a part could break, and like we said earlier, there's not as many places where you can get a part for a projector, right? It could take a week, it could take longer than a week. And if you're a theater that relies on 35, that's like a whole week of loss of money. You're not going to make the money back, the box office back on that. You're not going to get your ticket sales. But I've had moments where with a sprocket, the clasp for the sprocket won't stay down to hold the film down.
Yeah.
And I've just grabbed a rubber band and I'm like, okay, gonna rubber band it together, and that's my fix for the show. But that's all like easy problem solving. I mean, it's not easy, but problem solving, it's easier to do and find solutions for. And so I think that's also comforting. Sometimes I feel with DCP, I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone because there is a limit to what I can do. And, then it's just me placing a bunch of calls to Christy or to the people who work for the other projectors. It's difficult.
It's a lot of when as technology has, even though it can be, like we've said, this whole thing more convenient and make things better. It can make things better, but it's also almost pushes some people that are used to old ways of doing things into this kind of weird corner where they're like, well, I mean, I'm so used to this other thing and it works great, but now you're telling me I have to learn this other thing that I feel like is backwards. Like you're like, this is not as good. It's easier, but it's not as good when it's not.
And I think it is important to talk about new technology and learn how to use it in a way that like can help the industry. But there's a lot of talks, academic talks about AI here, and I just like don't even want to listen to it. And I know I'm like 26 and I'm considered young, and like I feel like my grandpa doesn't even want to use a computer. He's like, I'm too old to learn this. I don't want to learn it. Mm-hmm. And I already feel like that at 26 because AI is so distressing to me and so intimidating. And just like the other day when I was here, there was a talk about it and they were saying, well, actually AI can, help creativity and not like squander it or hurt it. And I was like, all I see or hear is that AI is going to be used by people who are in power already, have money, and who want to remain in power. Like,
Yeah.
I the end, that's my TED Talk,
Honestly,
Well,
these people, I don't feel like they've seen any movies because they should know if they create AI, it's going to end the world and there ain't going to be anybody to watch anything anymore. So,
well,
Ex
yeah,
Machina, hello,
true.
anybody?
I know, Ex
The
Machina,
Terminator, come on,
Terminator.
guys. I mean,
I
Jesus
mean,
Christ, how many times has this got to happen in movies and you're not going to take it
Battlestar
seriously?
Galactica. I
Yeah,
mean, it's interesting. I mean, I don't yeah, AI is a big talking point now with the strikes that are going on because, studios are finding their next thing that they can use to possibly cut some corners to make money faster, quicker, easier, where it's cost effective for
Convenient.
them,
yeah.
convenient. I mean, it screws over the writers and all this kind of stuff. It's kind of the same argument that we were having a couple of years ago, Stephen, when they were going to put not Steve McQueen, they were going to put um, James Dean in a movie, like a CGI version of James Dean in a movie. And
Yeah.
now we've reached a point where they're kind of doing that now with CGI characters with deep faking and all this kind of stuff. So I think that's also coming into play when it comes to putting actors back into movies to play roles they played 50 years ago. I'm just thinking of Rogue One that I brought up earlier, where the Peter Cushing, they
Oh, yeah, that
CGI'd,
was frightening.
and young Carrie Fisher, they did that as well in the same movie. Luke Skywalker, they did it for the Mandalorian series, and for Boba Fett, and it's like, what line are we getting to where that's like, this is kind of
Well, I mean,
absurd,
they want more creativity, but they keep going back to the well for everything.
They
It's
Do they really want more creativity, or do they just want more of the same
they're just
that sells?
yeah.
It's
I mean,
really tough,
the
and
whole
I'm
AI
thinking
thing is a way to eliminate writers, as many
you
writers as
have to pay
it's
them, and
yeah.
also algorithms will tap into certain things like what does an audience want, what sells better, what doesn't sell better. They can probably manipulate that
Mhm.
algorithm within the AI to make the product that's more beneficial for the studio in terms of selling a product, not in terms of selling an artistic movie. And that's where I guess a lot of the jargon gets talked about and brought up, because now you're talking about you're losing artistic intent and now you're just going for a product. You know what I mean? Like you're selling soda versus selling a painting, you know?
It is a business, but
The
it's
business
nice,
part of it gets dirty.
and it's nice to know that people are making decisions more
Yeah,
than you know.
and I
But
I think that's why I like again, I keep going back to here's my TED Talk on why I love physical film, but, you know, I when I'm inspecting a print and I get to see, like, each frame individually, it's just like I feel so much more connected to the film, and I just see so much intention behind everything, like, every person had a job and there was intention behind everything. Maybe
it's
sometimes not, but, it
there's a
happens.
Yeah.
romantic feeling. It's a
Yeah.
romanticness,
I don't even mean to say this, but have you been seeing the AI pictures that have come up lately on Twitter and stuff, where they'll take a frame from a movie and then they'll be like, "Oh, they ran it through an AI so that they expand the frame to what's
Yeah,
around the frame." And I'm
yes.
like, that's not the way this was made to be viewed. You know what I mean? And that takes
Yeah.
away the artistic intent. You're talking about the framing specifically. And it's like, yeah, this was supposed to be framed within this 35 millimeter square, 70 millimeter, 65, 16, whatever the case may be. And it's supposed to
Yeah.
look exactly like this. We're not supposed to know what's around the people in the frame. That's not important.
Yeah,
It's
it
what's in the
reminds me of,
frame.
this place came out with I don't know if it's probably a DVD, I'm assuming, or I think it was a DVD where they did the new Halloween, I guess, Halloween, Ends. Yeah, that one. Halloween Ends. I saw it in theaters and I, like, can't remember which one it is, but, they said, like, they, like, they recut the film so that it's, like, all the scenes, but without the new character, the man who's in it, I forgot
yeah.
his character name, and
Yeah.
they're like, "This is how it was meant to be seen," and I'm like, "This is how John Carpenter meant it to be seen." I'm like, "John Carpenter didn't even mean for you to see anything past Halloween 3, like,
Yeah.
straight up,
Yeah.
like, the man
Also,
was
John,
done."
yeah, Carpenter didn't make the movie. So what would be
Yeah,
his intent?
I'm like, yeah. So, I mean, it's a different thing, but yeah, there's always people who are like, "This is, what it should be. This is how," and I'm like, Well, that's not what the director said. That's not what
No,
that's not what the people who made the film said. And I'm like, I know it's subjective, but like, come on, you
I
can't
know
be
it.
like, this is how it should be seen.
Right. And this does bring up another thing. I guess we could ask Amelia because we brought this up a few times, Stephen. Director's intent, and a lot of directors have gone back to their old films and recut them, removed things, added things. And Stephen and I always brought up the debate, like, you know, is it right? Is it wrong? Is it
Well,
is it their prerogative? Is it
well, ultimately, I think we've come to an
I
impasse
wanted to
of
ask
that.
him what Amelia thought.
Well, of course, go ahead. Yeah, Amelia, please tell us your thoughts on it before I spat at the same thing I always say.
Yes.
So you're asking, repeat the question.
Well, certain directors go back and like to recut their movies.
Uh-huh.
What is kind of your take on that idea? Like sometimes they'll do entire recuts, or sometimes they'll cut out certain scenes. I know the Coen brothers went back and what was the movie that they
Miller's
Miller's
Crossing.
Crossing? They
Yeah.
cut out like an edge of a
Like
scene.
just a line of dialogue they cut out.
Coppola keeps going back and recutting his movies.
Is it kind of like Blade Runner, where there's like all those
5
cuts and
cuts?
then
Multiple cuts.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, as someone who has to like discern like between the cuts when professors request like Blade Runner, and I'm like, okay, which version? When my eyes twitching when I have to ask,
Yeah.
because it's hard to keep track. I think it's like just let it go. That's my opinion. Where I'm just like, you had your moment, you didn't do it, it's over. Like,
Well, I mean, that's
maybe that's just because I have to deal with exhibitions. So to me,
Yeah.
it gets like confusing with all the cuts. Maybe from like if I was viewing it more in an artistic way, like, oh, I understand they have a passion and they have a project and they want to see it through and all. But yeah, I'm like, I'm sorry to all the people who are going to hear me say this, but I didn't even like Blade Runner. I don't care what cut it is. I
That
don't
hurt.
like it.
That
Doesn't
hurts so
matter.
much.
I know. I'm so sorry,
it's
but
gonna upset some people, but I don't care either. You should never care.
Oh, Steven, stop stabbing me in the back.
But essentially, I fall close to what you're saying. Like that. But my whole thing is that as you said, like you when you do the movie, when you did the movie back in the 70s and you did it with what you had and the budget you had, yeah, there was maybe things that you wish you could have done differently then. But to me, it's part of what makes it important that you just keep the thing it is. Like it's
Right.
it's become a time. It's a point in time. And if I'm somebody that's had this long career, if I'm going back and I'm looking at my old movies and changing things, you're changing history. You're going back and you're messing with history. And it's like the people already like that thing. Like, why would you go back to mess with that thing that people already like? Like,
And I think a lot of it kind of extends also to, I guess, another thing I want to transition to is something that you did bring up earlier, Amelia, the, archiving, restoration, preservation, all that kind of stuff, where you kind of do have to go back and restore something. And we see, we deal with the Blu-ray release that always say like, remastered in 4K or remastered in 2K, new restoration, all that kind of stuff. And you do have to kind of maybe not have it in your mind, but you kind of understand that they have to maybe make the colors look brighter now, make the tone different or whatnot. Sometimes if the director's alive, they'll supervise it, or the
yeah,
cinematographer will supervise it and stuff like that. I mean, all of that stuff I think is a little bit similar to what we're talking about in terms of the director's going back and cutting things, but sometimes things can drastically change depending on the way in which a film is restored, and we've seen that many
yeah.
times where colors are completely changed.
Mhm.
I know Steven and I always bring up The Matrix. I know Steven
Mhm.
brings up the 4K being a lot different than the old Blu-ray looks, and then different than um, the way it looked in theaters. I mean, I didn't realize this until recently that um, The Lord of the Rings, which is my favorite movie of all time, has gone through so many different like color palette changes and like color tone changes, color
Mhm.
temperature changes
grading.
over the
Yeah.
years depending on the format. Like they would put up comparison like DVD, Blu-ray, 4K, and it's all completely different. And I'm like, I never noticed that. I guess I was just too wrapped up in the movie, but that's another thing where it's like director's intent
Yeah.
versus the way in which it's always been. And then, you know, and also with film like you said, Amelia, film kind of fades over time, colors dwindle over time, and they have to kind of refresh it. But do is the question of them refreshing it back to the original, or make it even, or go even further? You know what I mean? I don't know where I'm going with all this. I'm kind of rambling. Steven, I really want you to
Well,
save me on this.
well, isn't there like God, what is that? There's a film called like I don't remember what the film is, but it's basically debating like what is a copy, what is the original.
Oh,
God, I can't.
F for fake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a never-ending debate, I think, even throughout history with even different kinds of physical media, not even just film. What is the original? What is the intent? And that's, I think, an issue too of like when there's multiple people involved in a project, I bet it's so incredibly hard for there to be an original intent.
Yeah.
Unless the director is supervising literally or whoever the filmmaker is, or whoever's still alive, if it's an older film, unless they're like breathing down the necks of everyone involved, how can it ever be the original? You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking out my ass, but
no, you're not. Yeah, I think color, like the color stuff doesn't bother me nearly as much as just actually cutting the movie. Like I have my reservations about The Matrix, but it doesn't bother me enough to not watch that version of it. I can still watch the 4K of Matrix and I'll be fine. But it's when you actually either cut a scene or cut some dialogue that's where I have some issues, where I just wish sometimes that filmmakers, like you said earlier, would just let it go. Like, just don't so George Lucas, please stop adding CGI characters to your old Star Wars movies. Like we don't need that guy picking his nose in the corner. We don't need
that.
I mean, and I think the older a film gets, the more murkier it gets to trying to figure out original intent in terms of aesthetics. I mean, I've talked about this numerous times. I think there have been lengthy arguments on the Blu-ray.com forums about the aesthetics of like the good, the bad, and the ugly, because there's been so many different DVDs and Blu-ray releases of it that some look more yellow, some don't look more yellow. What is the original tint by Sergio Leone, who we can't ask because he's been passed away for years? What did it look like back when it came out? When it came out, and it's like, the further apart we get away from like original people who have seen these films, the more murkier it gets to like what should something actually really look like in the physical media realm, or digital realm really now when it comes to streaming. And it's like,
I had
what are the answers?
I guess I didn't really have like, this wasn't necessarily a critique or a negative moment I had. It was more of a positive moment. But I'm kind of obsessed. I wouldn't say obsessed, but it is like one of my favorite childhood movies / like I think it's cuckoo bonkers to the wall, which is anything Sid and Marty Krofft did is cuckoo bonkers to the wall. But I've only seen the movie Puff and Stuff from 1970 on VHS my whole life. Only VHS, which isn't the highest resolution we have now, but it's what I had. That's what they released it on. It didn't get an upgrade for a long, long time. And I actually just watched on YouTube a clip from the movie in 1080p. And it was actually alarming to see it in 1080p. Like, I was like, oh my God, this is like hyper real. This is weird. But at the same time, I was like, there's all these things I will now be able to notice and see in the movie that was probably intentional, like even just set design, like little things that I never could see, in a 240 resolution, now in 1080p. So there are good things. Obviously, you guys know this. There are good things about restorations, and especially stuff that doesn't get restored often, that got lost when things went from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray. There's always a huge chunk of films that are going to get lost every time there's an upgrade to a better resolution.
And I mean, there's always stuff that takes years and years to get restored, or sometimes never does. I mean, I often reference the documentary These Amazing Shadows, which talks about the National Registry and really talks about more about film preservation and archiving and restoration and stuff like that, where there's a lot of film prints from a century ago, of movies completely gone, which is always bemoaning. I mean, there's always statistics about 70-80% of the silent era of films being completely gone because nobody saved any of them. Once they used them, they used them up. They threw them away. They didn't need them. I mean, we oftentimes hear horror stories about that, and then we've often kind of see footage of these great archives with just like whole warehouses filled with canisters and all this kinds of stuff. I think that maybe the Film Academy has a lot of stuff, and then of course the National Registry has stuff, and then all kinds of archives all over the world. And we also do hear horror stories about a lot of the stuff in the boutique world, Stephen, where people are finding prints in barns.
Yeah, that happens too.
That are past like animal excrement and stuff like that, and leaky roofs. And I was just wondering, I guess, from just your perspective of dealing with having to get prints from certain areas, do you ever come across a print in such a condition where you're like, wow, I can't believe this is still able to work?
I'm so glad you asked. So I mean, this one didn't work, and I'm not going to say the distributor, although I didn't like how they handled the situation. I programmed Gigi, the musical from I think
Andrew, look
1959.
up which studio does that movie.
I can tell you it's a Best Picture winner, which makes me surprised it wasn't in better condition.
So I think that was, I feel stupid saying I think, but MGM, and the distributor's not MGM because obviously
Okay, all right, fine.
Because MGM's library is everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's everywhere. But they sent us a print, and not only did it arrive the day of the screening, which we had to platter it still. At that point, we were still plattering. The print was just smelled so strong of vinegar. And I took tape off of the reel, and I remember taking the tape off, and the film just parted right down the middle as I took the tape off.
Oh.
And I because I didn't know what else to do, I was just gonna see how it could go on the platter, and it was just warped around the platter. I mean, it wasn't even like a flat. It was just warped and falling apart and smelled. And then I told them, I said, hey, you have this print that you sent us and it's vinegar. We can't run it. We have to run a DVD. And then they're like, well, it's that's why you should have rented. Their response was that we should have rented the Blu-ray and it's our fault. So that's why we're going to have a subpar screening.
That's a hell of a response.
Yeah. Oh, you should have just went with the, because people just order film because whatever, obviously you have that's your main thing. You want to show things on film. They should know that that's important. So yeah, of course you ordered the film and not the DVD or Blu-ray.
I think they still send prints out. I know, because I see them all the time in various booths, but I think a lot of distributors don't care anymore. And there are distributors like Janus or other Park Circus or, that are on kind of a pedestal in terms of good distributors who care and want to give people prints who take care of the prints well. But there are a lot of, whether it be because cutting costs, they don't want to hire people to stay in the big shipping facility or where they keep all the prints, the warehouse or wherever. They don't house the prints properly anymore. It's a print that's usually on its last leg. I had a lot of times where I would program stuff. I programmed a Mannequin. And they got back to us and they're like, we can't find the other 3 reels of the film. We only have the first 3. So, I mean, of course, it's our duty to take care of the prints, but it's also the distributor's duty to if you really don't want to rent out prints, just say so. Instead of just renting out these vinegar prints or not taking care of the films, or I had people put electrical tape the films with electrical tape, or some people I know have seen prints stapled together, or
Jesus.
stuff like that, just egregious stuff.
If that tears,
it's bad.
It's sad really that those practices are still done in 2023 or the 21st century, because I thought we would have learned from mistakes like that over time.
That's
But I
that's
guess
normal.
I guess the industry really doesn't learn from their mistakes, which
That's
makes a lot of sense.
that's human behavior.
And
We don't learn from our past.
very true. And bringing up all this stuff that we talk about archiving and restoration stuff. Stephen, who did we talk to from American Zoetrope?
We talked to
Um,
James McCoskey.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
Yeah.
yes,
James.
we
Yeah.
had him on. Oh, gee, was it like a long time ago? But we talked to him
American
about
Zoetrope. We talked to him about at the time. We talked about his new Godfather restorations and things like that. And now I believe he's working on another one of Coppola's films.
Yeah, we got to talk to him
so
about a lot of that.
James. You're aware of James.
I've seen, because I'm part of like a forum that's about like distributors and exhibitors forums, so I see his name a lot, and I think that we've reached out to him for like distribution at some point.
Yeah. He was a super nice guy, and
Yeah, we had him on episode number 55.
Yeah, it was a while back ago.
So like half the show ago.
Yeah.
But we talked to him about a lot about that stuff because of
the archiving and all
the
that.
archiving and all that kind of, because I think he handles all that for Zoetrope, which has all of Coppola stuff. And kind of, as I just mentioned, connects back to earlier. They had to bring out all of that old stuff because Coppola's going back to recut a lot of his films. I mean, he did it with Godfather Part 3. He did it with what's the vampire film that they just put out a new kind of Twixt, I think. Was it?
I don't know.
Betwixt? I don't know. But anywho, but of course he went back and did The Outsiders was recut and things like that.
Yeah.
And then Rumblefish finally got a Blu-ray release many years ago. Great film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wrapping up, we could talk. I feel like we could talk to you for an hour, forever.
I do have a lot. Yeah,
we have a lot of things.
Forever.
We just got to bring you back.
Are you saying I'll be back? Are you?
I'm saying that we might reach out again. We might talk about some other stuff. But before we go, I do just simply we've kind of skirted. We've talked a little Dean Martin, that you love Dean Martin, but in general, what are just some of your favorite films?
Oh gosh. Okay, so I do have. I'm just gonna go off the top 4 on my letterbox because that's pretty easy for me to remember. But our Jean Renoir film called French Can. I love that film. I think it's an incredibly beautiful film. If you haven't seen it, I think it's one of his best films. Secretary, because I love James Spader. James Spader, if you ever hear this, I love you. And Maggie Gyllenhaal is so amazing in that film. I love her character. I am too a very depressed woman, so I relate to that character. Sunrise, The Song of Two Humans. Of course, I love Murnau. And what else? I love a lot of musicals, Warner Brothers musicals, Gold Diggers of 1933, 42nd Street, even Gold Diggers of 1935, Footlight Parade. Let's see. That's all I can really think of right now. My brain is going to get fried.
A lot of classic film.
You must be loving Warner Archive lately because they've been putting out a lot of their musicals on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I love musicals. I mean, I had a huge musical phase in high school where that's all I really watched was MGM musicals. But I've tried to explore, more contemporary films, and by contemporary I mean from the 80s and 90s. So I'm trying to branch out. I used to be very closed off of just liking films from like classic films, but there's beauty and artistry in any decade. You just have to find it.
That's good. Are you a fan of films about making movies? You love
Oh yeah.
That's a genre I think especially a lot of film people get into. One I always suggest to people, Living in Oblivion is a great. It's from the 90s. You said you're starting to get into the 90s stuff. Steve Buscemi plays this is during that indie. Yeah, this is that indie phase.
I love him.
Yeah. Where you were getting like your Kevin Smiths and stuff like that. So this movie is essentially about a film director making a little indie movie and the hardships of making a movie on such a small budget. It's a fantastic, cool movie.
My one movie about not necessarily making movies, but about running a theater There's a movie called The Smallest Show on Earth.
Mm.
It's a British, like, kind of dark comedy about this couple. It's from the 60s, about this couple who inherit this rundown theater, and it's like all of the staff are like old and
Yeah.
decrepit, and the projectionist is a drunk, played by Peter Sellers. That is like my favorite movie about a movie theater.
Oh,
So
yeah,
Awesome.
I've
I
seen
would
it.
recommend it. Yeah.
It's very good.
What's
It's
Yeah.
that? What?
directed by Basil Dearden.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. What's that film that Severn put out recently with what's her name?
Oh my goodness, I have it. It's on
You
my
know what I'm
shelf
talking about,
actually.
right?
Yeah,
The one with the she goes crazy and starts killing people. I know that's really not a good description.
isn't it all
Every
about
Severn
evil?
film. No.
Yeah, yeah, like every Severn film, and throw some
Yeah,
sex in there, and then it's a Severn film.
it's all about evil.
All about evil. That's another one that would be a really good one. That's
Yeah.
about a girl that you've seen that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I
It's
love
so
that. Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Yeah, Natasha Lyonne.
Natasha Lyonne. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a yeah. So there's so many references in that movie to like all like different genres and stuff, mostly horror stuff, but still,
yeah, yeah,
it's fantastic. Yeah, Seven put
yeah,
that out recently. Um, yeah, it was a movie I had never seen until they put it out. It was
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. But Amelia, we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. And like I said, please come back. We also do another show called the Unwatched Pile, so maybe we could bring you over to there, and
Oh, I love that.
you could pull something out of that Warner Archive collection you have, and that you haven't seen, and watch it for the first time and talk about it, and then pair it with another movie that you've already seen in your collection. So maybe we'll do that at some point in the future.
Let's do that. I love that. Yes.
Awesome. Well, Amelia, if there's any place for anybody to find you online, where would that be?
I have very original usernames. They're all the same, because I can't keep them all straight. But if I change the names, but on Twitter, my username is Sleepy Serenade. You can also type in Mistress of the Real. Instagram also Sleepy Serenade, or maybe it's My Sleepy Serenade. I can't remember, but those are the two main platforms I'm on. And I'm also out and about at repertory screenings in LA. I'm at Secret Movie Club. So come on down and hang out with us and see some great films on 35 in the Arts District in downtown LA. And that's where you can find me for now.
All right. Well, fantastic. Thank you, Amelia. Thank you, aka Mistress of the Real. And we'll catch you around. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
And we're back. Hello, everybody.
We are back from another great, fascinating interview with just someone within the movie world in some type of way.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating getting into the art of projecting. Really, the art of
Yeah.
projecting movies, the way in which it's changed over the years, the way in which it's still being utilized, specifically when it comes to repertory aspect of it all, and trying to gain prints to old movies and having to deal with distributors and finding prints and all this kind of stuff, which I find endlessly fascinating because I you don't know the type of condition you're going to get it in, you don't know where you're going to get it from. It seems like a bit of a hustle,
Yeah. Yeah.
a bit of a job.
It is, man. I mean, just a little bit I dealt with when it came to just booking was always just it just feels a little dirty. It just feels a little dirty, honestly, because I mean, and then it can get dirty. It's just depending on what company, especially Disney. They weren't the best to work with.
Yeah, you have to wheel and deal and
They
make
want
all
to
kinds of
essentially
deals.
take over your whole theater, and we were a 4 screen, and they wanted to essentially be like, "Hey, you got to show this for 2 months and throw it in your biggest theater for like like they would push us around."
I
Just
would be fascinated. Yeah, you're talking about like years ago.
yeah, this was years ago.
And I'm fascinated by the way it's changed now, specifically in the COVID era and this kind of little post-COVID era that we're in, where movies are seemingly in and out of theaters within weeks.
Yeah,
It's not months anymore for
yeah,
the most part. I'm seeing now over the last couple of months, movies go from premiering in a theater to on VOD within 3 weeks.
yeah,
Sometimes not even 3 weeks, like 18 days sometimes. And big movies, not like small stuff, big
yeah.
movies. And I'm like this is wild. Like people, and you wonder why people are not like going out right away if it's going to be in the theater, and if it's going to be if you're going to be able to watch it at home in 3 weeks. How is like that's going to be how is that going to make any money for the theater, any money for the studios? This is a very interesting summer of like a reckoning when it comes to the movie theaters, when it comes to box office and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we're learning that a lot of people are just staying home or not going as much or not going
It's
repeatedly.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, you notice by just the Indiana Jones box office, it didn't really do well. I mean, of course, it did have its mixed reactions coming out of Cannes, which seems like was a bad idea apparently to do that. But I mean, still, I mean, like when I went and saw The Flash on an opening weekend and it was dead in the theater, like I'm like, people are just not. People have made the decision, I think, for a lot of these
I can
movies.
yeah, I can tell you right now from looking today at the weekend box office, which is the 7th through the 9th of July, that movie you just referenced, The Flash, didn't even make $3 million.
That's
Didn't even
crazy.
make at the domestic box office. It's out of the top 10, and it came out in the theater, what, June 16th?
Yeah,
Yeah, so it hasn't been that long. That's what's happening right now is that's what you're seeing is that it's not movies aren't hitting as hard at the box office and they're fading faster
yeah.
because there's not repeated
The
customers.
only movie that I can think of recently that really killed it was Avatar 2.
I would say also Across the Spider-Verse really
Did
got
it do
people to go
well?
multiple
Okay.
times. But people are just investing. A lot of that's to do with just the way the culture is now, the way the economy is now, the way movies are being consumed now. I've had this theory working for weeks. As every single week, there's just another flop. I'm like, these these movie studios are operating on a pre-COVID idea, like the pre-COVID mindset, the pre-COVID rubric, where you could make a $200 to $300 million film, and it would make 7, 8, $1 billion. Now that's not the case. You can't go back. We can't go back
Yeah.
anymore. It's over. Those days are kind of over for the most part. And a lot of it is to do with streaming, a lot of it is to do with the physical media market, like we like to discuss here. But it's very interesting. It's all very interesting, and I think this summer is the summer of reckoning when it comes to all of that. Uh, but
Yeah. We'll
we
see.
do have some physical media stuff to talk about.
Yes, we do. We do. We have a not as you said earlier, not as heavy as last week, but we do have a pretty good slate here. Um, how about we start with a little bit of news about some new partner labels?
Ah,
How about we do
yes.
that? You gonna read it?
Oh, it's a long article, so I
Well,
don't want to
don't
go
read the
through
whole
all.
article, but yeah.
So there are two new partner labels that are going to be popping up at Vinegar Syndrome in December. When December has their partners only month after their Black Friday sale every single year, there's going to be two new partner labels that are going to be showing up. One is going to be IFC Films, which should sound familiar to a lot of you because IFC has been around for quite a long time. I think they still have a cable channel, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And IFC's also been around in the like movie distribution game for a while. Like I always see them at film festivals, like buying rights to movies or whatnot.
Yeah.
So that's one of them, and then the second one is actually, one of the people from Culture Shock is branching off. Actually, I think Culture Shock in general is leaving
Yeah.
as a, um, as a partner label as well. Isn't that right, Steven?
Yep. It says that down at the bottom.
Yes.
Um, yeah.
And what is the second? Isn't it? I
Mm,
can't. I'm trying to skim through this article off the top of my head, and it's just
yeah,
giving
I'm not
me.
seeing the second one. Um, let me see here. Maybe that was just the second bit of news. Maybe I mean, it does say that there's more coming in 2024. That there's two new partner labels and more labels coming in 2024. But I don't see a second name here for one that's coming this year. I think just that Culture Shock was leaving was the second bit of news. It says that he wants to start a new label that's about art
Hmm.
house cinema.
Yeah, I think I saw that as well. I'll give my email a quick scan, because, uh, I thought I saw a second name, but I guess I may have been completely wrong. But I do wanna talk about IFC because I did see some stuff about, um, them perhaps putting things on Blu-ray that haven't had Blu-ray releases yet, which is really interesting to me, or maybe things that have only had DVD releases. and now we'll have Blu-ray releases as well. So I'm very curious about that because there's that's always seems the case for me, where that seems to be something I look forward to. Yeah, I can't find it for some reason.
Well, with the IFC, I think that means we're probably going to see a lot more, very obscure indie kind of things. That's kind of what they're usually that they used to distribute, right? Just kind of like,
Oh yeah, they were always into indie and kind of underseen films, and that used to be their thing. I remember their channel used to be commercial free way back when, but they unfortunately had to go to commercials because you got to pay bills. You can't, you can't not pay bills and stuff like that. So that's the case. So we'll move on from there, and if I figure this out, we'll go back to it, I think. Because of course, my email is just a complete and utter mess. That people do not have over 10,000 unread emails because it will come back to haunt you viciously when you need to do things like this.
You got to delete stuff, man.
You got to do it. You do have to do it.
I do it every day. I just delete shit every day. All right. Well, let's go over to Visual Vengeance, a label we haven't heard from for a while. They got two films from Brett McCormick coming out, and that's Replicator and The Abomination. Don't know anything about these movies, but I can say this: I love the covers. Both of these covers are amazing. You want to read the description on these movies?
No, you can do it because I actually don't even have that up. I'm way off my game.
The Replicator. Okay, so from the director Brett McCormick comes one of the most screwball and brain-melting late 90s direct-to-video entities ever made. At a top-secret military facility, a group of scientists and army brass work on the Replicator project, which quickly goes awry when it turns all the male soldiers into gorgeous, scantily dad nymphid. These are words that I can't say. Nymphid who then morph into alligators when they reach the peak of sexual excitement. Starring original Leatherface Gunnar Hansen, the iconic Scream Queen Brinky Stevens, and Replicator enjoys its first ever release on Blu-ray with brand new interviews, insight, and their cast and creators in sexy science fiction send up. All right, well, that's a description.
That sounds incredible.
And then The Abomination, deep in the heart of rural Texas, a TV evangelist exorcises a tumor from a body of a loyal worshiper who soon coughs up the growth. Unknown to her, the cancer is actually a carnivorous life form that slithers its way into her son Cody while he sleeps, growing inside him until he is completely under his control. Now Cody must feed the beast fresh victims to keep them both alive. As the monster grows out larger and larger, threatening to feast on everyone in his path, one of the most legendary and notorious VHS releases of video store era, Brett McCormick's Super 8 goof fest, The Abomination, enjoys its first ever release on Blu-ray with newly created bonus features and never before seen outtakes, images, and more. That sounds even awesomer.
Nice. I did find that information that we were just looking for.
Okay.
So I did track it down. So the first, other than IFC Films as being a partner label, the other label was just going to be called Art Label, and it's run by Warren Gian, formerly of Culture Shock.
Yeah, that's right. So it's his other label.
That was the connection.
Yeah.
And Culture Shock is also going to be leaving the partner label sphere.
Yes.
Sometime soon. Yes.
Yeah.
So that was that whole thing. So I finally found the article. Don't ask me why it took me forever to find it. I thought I went to my email, I went to Vinegar Syndrome's website, and then I finally just went to Twitter and looked up OCN's Twitter and then found the article from High Def Digest. So I got there eventually. While Steven serenading us with that lovely
Yes.
grotesque descriptions
Yeah,
of
they were
these
these both
schlocky films.
these both sound like really fun. I definitely want to see if I can find a way to watch these because they both sound like just obscene, goofy movies. Like these are movies that I think my wife would like to watch. Actually,
Really?
yeah, she loves movies that are just so kind of out there. Like we both had a good time. Scrolling through Tubi, you can find about almost
Oh
anything,
yeah.
and so we've come across some great ones such as Velocipaster and
Oh, that's classic.
yeah, straight Snake Outta Compton, the sequel to Snakes on a Plane, or Straight Outta Compton,
Amazing.
either one of them.
It works for both of them.
Yeah, just tons of like just really just schlocky, stupid movies like that, and that's what these sound like. And
And
yeah,
that and
yeah,
again, that is Visual Vengeance's kind of thing. They
yeah.
put out these kind of really BC movies, schlocky movies. They put out like Suburban Sasquatch, Moonchild, Slaughter Day, Blood of the Chupacabra / Revenge of the
Hey,
Chupacabra.
but they
You
put a
know,
lot of love into it, man, and they do tons of features. Like they got
yes,
yeah,
yes, they do.
lot of features here. Whether it's new interviews with the director, producers, actress, like just all over this thing. So they
Oh
really put a
yeah,
lot
wow,
into
these
it.
are packed. I'm
Yeah.
just looking at. I finally got around to looking at them. Yeah, these are packed. And these are both coming out in September 26th.
Yes.
But moving on from there, I do want to, I guess, swing the pendulum over a different route, and I'm gonna go talk about Milestone Films is putting out a a silent film from 1929, a British silent film, and that is called Piccadilly. And the reason why I wanted to mention this one is it stars Anna May Wong. And Anna May Wong we've brought up a couple of times because Kino put out a 3-movie set of Anna May Wong films within the last couple of months. I think it came out in May or June, somewhere
Yeah.
around there. And she was also in Joseph von Sternberg's The Orient Express. No, not The Orient Express. Um, the the Shanghai Express. Sorry, the Shanghai Express. She was in that film, but this is a film that she made after starring in several Hollywood silent era films. Then she made her way over to Europe to kind of branch out from her kind of supporting roles that she was kind of relegated to in Hollywood. So she went there and she starred in this movie called Piccadilly. And it's not about Piccadilly Circus, it's about a nightclub called Piccadilly that is it's run by this guy, and he ends up firing his like his main act is like a duo, like a dancing singing duo, and he fires the male component of it and keeps the woman in it. And what ends up happening is his business starts tanking, so he needs something to get his business up. And he initially fires the Anime Wong character and then brings her back as a kind of a dancer, really, a dancer and performer, and she's a huge hit. And it creates um, all kinds of friction between his other performer and her and him, and jealousy and all this kind of stuff. And it's a very interesting film. The movie runs about an hour and 49 minutes. It is streaming on the Criterion channel for those of you who want to watch it now. It is available, I think, streaming through Canopy too. And it's of an interesting quality. I think it's the milestone actual release of it because I saw their emblem or their credits were all over the streaming version. The biggest problem I had while watching it is I think at least I could tell. I would have to do research on this myself, but it felt like they used some type of modern approximation of music to attach to this film,
Hmm.
and it felt off tonally the whole time
Hmm.
because back then they kind of over time they lost a lot of the original orchestral audio track that was used for a lot of the silent films. And over time they've just kind of added new tracks to it or new orchestral music or something like that. And some of them works better than others. Some of them are close to the original. Some of them are not. This one really didn't sound close to the original, at least in my opinion, and it kind of brought the movie down a little bit for me because it was just repetitious over and over again. That's why I thought it just didn't feel quite as authentic. But for all I know, it could very well have been as close to the original music as possible. But it's getting an audio commentary by Farron Smith and Naeem. I never know how to pronounce her last name.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at it. And an introduction to the 1929 sound version. That's interesting. But yeah, this is an interesting silent film from the late silent era because by 29 they definitely had talkies. So this
Yeah.
is this is an interesting kind of uh, historical film, if anything.
Yeah.
Just capture that time in cinema.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah. More silent film, man. It's always good. All right. Well, Kino. Should we move over to Kino? Got a few
Sure,
things over there.
sure. Let's go to Kino.
Um, First thing here we'll bring up. This was a pretty big one. Coming out at some point soon. We're getting a brand new HDR 4K of Brokeback Mountain from 2005.
Yes.
That's the Ang Lee film starring Jake Gyllenhaal and the late Heath Ledger. Also, I believe it's Anne Hathaway and Michelle Williams
Yep.
also co-starring in there. This was the Best Picture nominee film. Honestly, probably should have won. If I remember,
Considering the films that it was up against at the time, yes, it probably should have been. I
yeah,
believe that's the Crash year, isn't it?
yeah, I think it is the Crash
Yeah,
year.
memory off the top of my head, please don't hold this to me at home. I think it was the nominees were Crash, Brokeback Mountain, Good Night and Good Luck, Munich, and something else. Um, and all of them were much better than Crash. All of them. But yeah, this won the Oscar for Best Director, for Best Adapted Screenplay, for Best Score. To be honest, in my opinion, it's one of the best films of the last 25 years. It's an astonishing work. And like acting just on another level with Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal doing some of their greatest work in their careers. Um, just beautifully well shot, fantastic love story, fantastic story in general. Um,
What were the, did you say Capote is one of the nominees?
I think that's the one I forgot.
That's the one
Was
you
Capote
forgot.
one
You
of
got
them?
everything else though. Munich, Good Night, Good Luck, Capote, Brokeback Mountain, and Crash won that year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Goodness gracious.
there's at least 4 other movies that I could have picked over Crash. Just this
Yeah.
all four of these movies honestly were better than Crash. I'm sorry. I know there's some Crash like defenders.
Apologists?
Yeah, yeah.
Lovers? I don't
I
know.
mean, look, maybe it's not as bad as I remember it, but I don't think it was better than any of these other movies. Like,
Not that it's yeah, in my opinion, it's not better
I
than
mean, Munich is
uh,
fantastic. That's like one of the most
Munich, I think, is
underrated.
very underrated in my
Yeah,
opinion.
one of
Um,
Steven Spielberg's best movies of that time. And I mean, I think Capote's more of a performance movie. You know, Philip Seymour
mm,
Hoffman's amazing in that movie.
he did win the Oscar for it,
He did.
so
Um, but
there you go there.
yeah, I mean, but yeah, this is a great film. I feel like this was the movie. I mean, I know Ang Lee was known for some indie films before this.
Well, he had done
The
the
Ice
film he did
Storm was one.
yeah. The film he had did right before this was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah, yeah. He also did the Hulk movie, the
Oh,
one
that
with
was actually the movie he did right before this one
yeah,
in
yeah. Eric Bana.
2003.
Eric Bana's
Oh,
yeah,
man.
yeah,
Um, yeah, but this movie has been released on Blu-ray several times over the years. It's kind of had the same exact release since 2009, just repackaged with
yeah,
different like, not even different artwork, it's the same damn artwork every time. They
yeah,
just put, like, an Academy Award slipcover over it or something like that, or they package it with the DVD and they call it the 100th Universal 100th Anniversary Edition, but it's the same disc since 2009, same
yeah,
exact one from Universal. So, luckily, this is gonna be a huge upgrade from that, because it came out way back when and had a VC1 encode on that Blu-ray. Um, it did have a DTS HD master audio track, 5.1 audio track, but I'm hoping we get some special features on here or
yeah,
some at least something new because I think that release had not much. Um, yeah, it had. Oh man, this is 2009 special features, so the still photo montage is considered a special feature. Um, but yeah, so we need some stuff,
Yeah,
especially since Ang Lee is still with us. He's still
of course.
working. Give us
Give us
his
something,
perspective on
man.
the film.
Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal is still around.
Of
Michelle
course.
Williams, Anne Hathaway. We got people here. Come
Yeah,
on, we
we
have to
we
utilize them.
got people, guys. Um,
What we're finding out now is that, you know, especially in the physical media game, with a lot of these catalog titles, unfortunately, we've said this before many times, a lot of the people passed away before they can really discuss their work.
yeah.
So, let's use them while we can. Uh,
What's interesting about this movie too is with how society is changed over the last 18 years now since the movie came out.
mm,
How people talk about certain actors playing certain roles, being that these two men were not homosexual men
mm,
playing homosexual characters, would I think today not maybe play as well, because that seems to
right.
be a thing with a lot of audience, is that they want people that are people that are they want the people that are the actors to be the roles that are being played. They want of course, the right ethnicities being playing. Now, do I agree that necessarily? No, I don't, because I think acting is acting. That's what acting is.
Mm,
We only had the people that now when it comes to ethnicities, yes, I don't want white people playing black people. I don't want that stuff like that. But
mm.
when it comes to sexual orientation, I think that's maybe a little bit more open for an actor to maybe stretch himself.
Yeah.
Um,
It's not something that I could comment on, obviously not being from the
of
LGBTQ
course, of course.
community, so
This
I
this
couldn't, like, say, like, what do they think? But I could say the conversation for what you're saying
yeah,
has definitely been
it's
had
definitely
more so now than it was back in the early 2000s. At least the platform for it exists now
yeah,
on a larger stage than it did back then, with the internet being bigger and with more social media and with
yeah,
more places for people to discuss these things. I just think in general, this love story pertaining within the LGBTQ community was considered, a groundbreaking at the time,
yeah.
controversial to some at the time, whatever their perspective
And
is.
unfortunately,
Nowadays,
it became a joke at the time too,
and it also became a joke as well. And in retrospect, it's a lot different now. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like, there's the idea, oh, that's so Brokeback, and you say that as a negative thing.
yeah.
And
It
now
was the
it's like maybe
replacement
we
for
shouldn't have
actually
been saying
saying
that.
that's gay.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Yeah, it was just substituting using it's substituting making fun of homosexuality,
yeah,
essentially.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, which unfortunately has been part of our society for a very long time.
yeah.
Even to this day, it still is. I mean, where there's the war keeps going on in many of those battlefields.
Of course,
It would be interesting to see what the perspective of that movie is now, and the perspective
yeah.
of that community now on that movie.
Yeah, and
Like, how do they feel
my
about it?
opinion's my opinion. If everybody wants to have a discussion, they can. I just think acting is acting. I think that of course the one of the main things I'm sure that community um cares about is that it's taking away roles from
Mm,
homosexual actors, and I understand that, and I think that's a problem. That's but then again, I wouldn't mind the other way around. I don't care if which we do. We have a lot of queer actors and actresses playing straight people. It
right.
happens all the time. It's
I think there's room to acknowledge both. I think
exactly
there's room to acknowledge, both the quality of the acting in Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal's performance, but
the
also be
respect.
like, I
There's
wish
definitely a
that
lot of respect there. Yeah,
yeah, but also be like, I wish that, someone within the community would have played these roles instead. And you can
sure,
be right in both of those
exactly. Yeah,
aspects,
yeah,
because they're not completely the opposite of each other. But I'm really excited for this release, like I said, because it is going to be a hell of an upgrade. It's a fantastic movie. Um, yeah, once again, Universal's not afraid to share their
yeah, yeah,
licenses with other companies.
yeah.
Really, they share with everybody. But next up, moving on from there, we've got another film that we've already seen get a Blu-ray release, and it's now getting another Blu-ray release. And this is a '90s neo noir of After Dark, My Sweet, which was in one of the imprint '90s neo
Yeah,
noir collections.
Kino keeps pulling apart more imprint sets. So we've already
Mm,
pulled out, I think, One False Move and I believe another one too. Didn't they pull out another one out of that?
Nobody's Fool? Was that part of one of the
Yeah.
sets?
Well, no, it's not a. It was
Oh,
just another imprint release. That was just
oh, I think you're right. Yeah.
yeah. But I think they pulled something else out of one of them imprint neo noirs too already, and I'm just not remembering which one it is. But
Can you? But
yeah,
do you remember? You remember watching this film?
yeah. It's
Yes.
out of all the ones in that set, this was kind of the most weird, the weirdest one. You know, it kind of all takes place in one house, really. I mean, it's a lot of the movies in a house, but Jason Patrick plays. I think are very interesting out of all the characters that I think that they're bringing up in these sets. It's one of the most interesting characters he plays in this movie. It's definitely kind of like a kind of a deep root neo noir. Like it's like really playing up the noir elements in this movie.
Yeah, and I do know what you were just talking about. I kind of deflected to you to buy me some time so I could actually look it up.
He
That was
does this a lot.
a little behind the scenes stuff. But the other Paul Newman movie, Twilight, was part of the first set. Kino put that out on Blu-ray. One False Move, which is also part of that imprint Volume 1 set, was put out by Criterion recently in 4K. So yeah, those sets are being pulled apart here in the US by other companies.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I mean, that's probably why they were able to put it out, is because they said they were going to put it in a box set. You know, that's the deals that get made. Not every deal's about single rights. Sometimes you can make a deal where you throw it in a box set and that's a whole different deal, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So After Dark, My Sweet, is a really solid neo noir from the 90s. Jason Patrick was kind of the man
He was
back
the man
in like
back then, yeah.
the 80s and into the 90s, and his career kind of went away.
Him and Andy Garcia were like fucking in everything.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about Andy Garcia, I think, again at some point in this episode, because I'm pretty sure he was in one of. Yeah, because he was popping up in a lot of movies in the 90s.
Yeah.
It just happened to be.
All right. Well,
yeah. So
I
moving
think
on.
we got a couple
we can move
more.
on from there because we've already talked about it. So let's move
on. Another one we got here coming out September 19th. We have 1992's Brain Donors.
Yes, we do.
I've heard about this movie, but I don't think I've ever seen it.
I think this movie had already been announced. I think we're just getting the details on it now. That's coming out September 19th. We also got confirmation that the Best of Times is coming out September 19th, which we talked about with Robin Williams and Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
And then September 12th is going to be After Dark, My Sweet. But this movie looks more of a comedy, I would say. Yeah, it's from the Zucker brothers, who were behind Airplane and the Naked Gun films. So you kind of get what you're getting here. It's kind of a screwball zany comedy.
Yeah.
It says, it comes in outrageous laugh fest featuring the zaniest screen screwball since the brothers Marx, or the Marx brothers, the Brain Donors. High society meets high hilarity when Rich Widlow, Lillian Oglethorpe, hires fast-talking, ambulance-chasing lawyer Roland T. Flackpfizer, what a name, as her legal advisor. His first assignment to fulfill Mr. Oglethorpe's dream of founding a ballet company. Oh boy, sounds zaniness. Flackpfizer recruits two unable assistants in Jacques, who was portrayed by Bob Nelson, who was in Kindergarten Cop, a Harpo-like jack of all trades and master of none, and the Rocco Melanchok, a cab driver moonlighting as a pool cleaner, because those two go hand in hand, clearly.
Exactly, yeah.
He's a moonlighting as a pool cleaner, a liposuctioner, and toupee salesman. What ensues is an off-the-wall, fall-down funny assault on culture and good taste, as a lot of the 80s comedies were. Or in this case, 1992, which has a little 80s holdover in it. Seems like a zany, fun comedy.
Yeah.
To be honest. I never seen it. So I couldn't tell if it's good or not. I also didn't see the next film that's up here on this list, and that is The Boogens from 1981.
It's getting a 4K, so somebody likes it.
It's getting a 4K and a Dolby Master. Dolby, yeah, HDR Dolby Vision Master, which is a heck of an effort to go into a film that I know nothing about. Of course, I can't spell Boogens because, yeah, there it is. I'm looking up on IMDb right now. So, otherworldly creatures are released from the bootleg tunnels underneath a small town mining community and begin chomping on the locals. Of course they are.
Mm.
Of course they are. It feels like maybe like a little precursor to Gremlins, Hobgoblins. Um, what any other little creature feature films from the 80s? I feel.
Yeah. Well, I kind of want to see what these creatures look like, so I might need to watch this. And I like saying Boogens. The Boogens.
Boogens.
It's like I'm trying to say boogers or something. The boogers.
And this was directed by James L. Conway, who apparently has done a lot of TV stuff over the last 25, 30 years. Goodness, he's directed everything from like Star Trek The Next Generation to Smallville to The Magicians. And yeah, this is one of, I guess, several films he directed in the 80s, which seems to be the most of his uh, theatrical film work was 70s and 80s stuff. But is there anything else on that list?
There is one more film that I'm seeing here that's getting a 4K.
Oh, yes, it is. Okay, here we go. So I've seen this film, and it is a good film. You're gonna recognize some of these names here. So this is the 1972 film Prime Cut, starring Lee Marvin, Gene Hackman, Sissy Spacek. I owned this movie actually. A friend of mine bought it for me as a blind buy, um, as a gift for like my birthday a couple of years ago. And coincidentally, I just lent it back to that same friend for him to watch it because he wanted to see it. So, the premise of this film, I'll just read the IMDb premise because it's much easier. A vicious Kansas City slaughterhouse owner and his hick family are having a bloody beef with the Chicago crime syndicate over profits from their joint illegal operations. Top enforcer Nick Devlin, portrayed by Gene Hackman, no, portrayed by Lee Marvin, um, goes down to their ranch and has to straighten out those issues. So you've got Lee Marvin as a mob boss heavy from Chicago, I think going down to like Oklahoma, Texas to like this beef farm place that is run by Gene Hackman's character, and he gets into that whole kind of mess that's going on down there. He ends up having a relationship with this Sissy Spacek character called Poppy. It's a very interesting, kind of dark, gritty '70s movie that I did really very much enjoy. It's directed by Michael Ritchie, and that's a name I think we've heard a lot of before. He directed The Golden Child. He directed Fletch, which we talked about last week.
Yeah.
Um, he wrote Cool Runnings, which we also brought up last week. Wildcats, and yeah, he did some stuff in the '70s and '60s and whatnot. TV work too, like The Man from Uncle and like Bob Hope special and whatnot. But yeah, I really do dig this movie. I recommend it. If you're a fan of Gene Hackman, if you're a fan of Lee Marvin, Sissy Spacek, um, definitely give it a whirl. Definitely check it out. I'm fascinated that this is getting a 4K release of all movies because it's not like a pretty movie.
Yeah.
It's a gritty '70s film with a lot of film grain.
Well, Gene Hackman is a pretty celebrated actor, and Lee Marvin too. Sissy Spacek. I mean, it's a great cast. I mean, I think they think they just with the pedigree of the movie and that is
whatever they want to whatever Kino wants to put out in 4K, go right ahead.
Go for it.
Go right ahead. I'm not gonna stop him. I'm not gonna stop him.
All right. Well,
yeah, so that's it for Kino.
You're not going to stop me from moving on from Kino and going on over to Scream Factory and Shout Factory. How about that?
Oh, I was gonna go to Radiance, but sure. Just
you ain't stopping me.
Yeah. So where do you want to go? Scream Factory or Radiance?
Scream Factory.
Okay, so that's where we are.
All right.
So we got some upgrades.
We do have some upgrades. We do have some, new stuff. I guess I don't know. I don't know what's new and what's an upgrade here.
But we're about to find out.
You're about to find out. I'm just kidding. Go ahead, talk.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of upgrades here. Natural Born Killers, which has 2 Blu-ray releases. Mind you, it's got a theatrical cut release and I think a
Once again,
director's
see,
cut release.
you always confuse me with this. You say upgrade, and I'm thinking just for the company, not in general.
What
You
do you mean?
say.
I'm thinking upgrade from Blu-ray to 4K.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're
Yeah.
saying I'm thinking from the company. Like I'm thinking like this is this is an upgrade from a Shout Factory release.
Oh no,
Right?
this isn't.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
because Natural Born
That's
Killers
what
was
was
not put out.
you say things in general, and I'm thinking just about Shout Factory.
Ah,
Yeah,
you're in the shout mindset.
because they do it so often.
Well, yeah,
They get a Blu-ray or something, then they say, "Oh, here's the 4K." Like it's
yeah.
so
This is
that's
not that case actually. This is
yeah
one of the cases where, for the most part, they're taking stuff that was either released by other companies or haven't had Blu-ray or 4K releases yet and are releasing them. So the original Natural Born Killers, the director's cut release, um, came out in 2009. By Warner Brothers. So this is a Warner Brothers to Shout Factory licensing deal that's going on here, which is not exactly surprising right now because it's a shit show at Warner Brothers, and they're giving things out like because they need to make money. They need to make money.
sure.
But there was a digibook that also came out in 2008, which I have. Um, that I think was just a theatrical cut and not the director's cut. To be honest, the difference between the theatrical cut and the director's cut of Natural Born Killers, I think, is just a couple of seconds of footage. I don't think it's anything like
Yeah,
hugely different. It's just something I guess Oliver Stone had to cut out to get a to get an R rating or whatever. Because for those of you who know Natural Born Killers, it's a rather graphic movie,
yeah.
in both its content and its aesthetics, and it's a trippy movie. And I can't quite explain this movie. It's like I'll try. It's kind of like a Bonnie and Clyde on acid.
Bonnie and Clyde in there a little bit. I would, it's been a while since I've seen it, but it's like
Yeah,
got a little bit of that Sid and Nancy,
yeah. Sid and Nancy. It's first of all, it's Mickey and Mallory. They're attractive mass murdering killers in love. And this movie's kind of based on, like I said, Bonnie and Clyde, but also like the Honeymoon Killers, which has a Criterion release, and they are just on like a mass cross country killing spree of like 52 people. And what happens is like the country gets like enraptured by them, like they become like fans of them, and the
yeah,
whole movie is kind of just like a commentary on like I don't know, like media and how it can turn the most evil people into stars just by virtue of the way they're covered in media, on the news, in newspapers, radio. I mean, today it would be kind of like the way the internet covers people and kind of turns good people bad and bad people good and all this kind of stuff. It's very the movie is very much ahead of its time, but it is a graphic film, and it's shot by Oliver Stone, made by Oliver Stone, who has such a stylized version of which he makes his movies that are so surreal at times and so avant-garde, and the colors and editing that he's using just knocks you around like you're in a pinball machine. But yeah, Natural Born Killers, what a unique film. It's by Oliver Stone, starring Woody Harrelson, Juliette Lewis, Robert Downey Jr. is in this film, Tommy Lee Jones in this film, Tom Sizemore's in this film, Rodney Dangerfield is in a couple of scenes in this film. But Shout Factory, in their infinite wisdom, is giving this a 4K UHD release, and I'm here for it. We have no info on what special features are carrying over or what new ones are going to be created, but I'm fascinated by this release in general. Um, yeah, wow, what a release! But next up, we do have info on this release, and that is Night of the Comet getting a 4K UHD release. I had heard about this movie for years and had never seen it up until now. And it is every bit as good as people said.
okay,
Really good. Very kind of low key, not what I was expecting. It's in the same day as like Night of the Living Dead or something like that. Oh no, Return of the Living Dead. It's very much in the vein of Return of the Living Dead. But even more low key than that. So what happens is there's this comet that's going to flash across Earth, and what ends up happening is people either get turned into like flesh eating cannibal zombies, or they just disintegrate into dust in the streets to the point where like their clothes are just lying there. and this young girl and her sister end up surviving. And it's just about them surviving with this other guy who's traveling, who ends up traveling, and they end up running into each other. And then there's this government, secret government underground base that's conducting science experiments and stuff that's going on. And the movie is just really solid. Like, for that premise, it's really, really good. I'm not doing it justice at all, but I can read the IMDb synopsis. A comet wipes out most of the life on Earth, leaving two valley girls fighting against cannibal zombies and a sinister group of scientists. And that is kind of the movie. But what is interesting is there's not like hordes of zombies. It's not Walking Dead. It's not Night of the Living Dead. It's not Dawn of the Dead. It's more about just them just chilling out and hanging out in a post-apocalyptic world now, in like on the West Coast. Fascinating the movie, and I rather enjoyed it. I rather enjoyed it a lot.
Oh, okay.
But this release is getting 2 discs. One's the 4K, one's the Blu-ray. 4K restoration. Looks like Dolby Vision HDR presentation. We got 3 audio commentaries. And we also got a couple of other interviews and other things like that. So I'm digging it. I'm really liking this release. So I recommend Night of the Comet for people.
Cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to see. I know there was another release of this at some point. Yeah, there was a collector's edition release put out by. This looks like a Shout Factory release from. Yeah, Shout Factory release from 2013. A collector's edition.
All right, so this is
this is an upgrade
a proper
from them straight
upgrade
up
for them. Yeah,
Yep.
but you know, that's been a while, so we'll give them that one.
Yep. And then next up, we've got a movie. Oh boy, how do I classify this movie? My Demon Lover. What a movie!
Come on, man.
What a
Describe
movie.
it. Describe the damn
Okay,
thing.
here we go. So there's this guy who's this homeless vagrant, and he turns into a demon every time he becomes sexually aroused.
Wow.
And he's trying to break this curse that's been put upon him. And in order to break this curse, he's got to do something like selfish or good-hearted or heroic act or something like that. And he ends up running into this girl, and he's having this kind of friendship, romantic thing going on with her, and whatnot. But meanwhile, there seems to be all of these murders happening at night, and all of these people seem to be like viciously murdered. And the whole time you're watching this movie is you're assumed that it's him. Is it really him, or is there somebody else committing these murders? And then that's kind of like a backstory that's going on. But it's very goofy. It's very zany. It's not great at all. It's the third act of this movie takes a hard left turn into Crazy Town, and I'm just like, what is going on here? Yeah, the premise, if the premise isn't goofy enough for you, the movie definitely is as goofy as you can be. There's no special features here to speak of yet. It is coming out September 5th. So far, all of these movies are coming out in September, with Natural Born Killers coming out September 26th. But My Demon Lover is got to be like an 80s cult film, I think. I saw people on IMDb giving it anywhere from like a half a star to like 4 stars. That's how wild the reaction was to this movie. Yeah, there's some endearing aspects of it. There's some goofy, funny aspects of it. Some sexism and misogyny in this movie is so 80s that you could only get away with it in the 80s. Like, it is absurdly bad. But yeah, it doesn't really, stand the test of time in that regard. But moving on to a film that's probably more well-known, more liked, I assume, and that is My Bloody Valentine, 4K UHD release. This is the original film, I think came out in 1981, and this is getting 2 cuts of the film. This was another one, Stephen, like you're saying, this was a Scream Factory release.
Yeah.
That's getting a 4K upgrade. So for those of you who already own it, this may not be for you. Those of you who haven't owned it yet, this may be for you. So you're getting 3 discs. You're getting a 4K UHD that has the uncut version of the film. You're getting a Blu-ray that has the uncut version of the film. And then you're getting a third disc, which is a Blu-ray that has the theatrical version of the film. But you got a whole host of special features here. Audio commentary on the uncut version of the film, plus bunch of stuff with the director and a bunch of people who are in the movie. Yeah, it looks like a reunion panel, which is kind of cool. I'm not sure if this is just carrying over the old special features from the old release. I would assume so. That seems to be
Probably.
what they're doing with all of these. But yeah, I like My Bloody Valentine a lot. I know there was that remake from the 2000s time. I don't know if you saw it with Jensen Ackles,
I
where it was
I
also in
think
3D.
I think I did see that. I don't know that I've seen this one, the original one. I can't remember if I have or not, but I don't think so.
Yeah, the Jensen Ackles one came out in 2009, and I remember because that was around the time where 3D was making its comeback, so you could watch it in 3D.
Yeah.
That was the whole big thing. I Yeah, and I think also the original My Bloody Valentine may have also been in 3D. Don't quote me on that. Um, but yeah, I do really like this. Is another kind of 80s well-known horror film. This is right up there with, you know, Prom Night and all those other films from, Slumber Party Massacre and even the Halloween films and Nightmare on Elm Street and um what's Friday the 13th. Like all those stuff were all coming out around the same time. My Bloody Valentine was just kind of right in there as well. I don't know if they made any sequels to it. I don't think so. I should probably look that up, but I didn't. But next up, we've got a box set, and the box set is the Irwin Allen Master of Disaster collection. Isn't that just a great saying, Master of
Mm.
Disaster? The reason why it's a Master of
And
Disaster
in that one of Apollo Creed's names?
is it probably is
Yeah.
when he
Master
gets
of
his ring announcement.
Disaster, the
Yes.
King of Sting.
The reason why this is called the Master of Disaster collection, you're about to find out, people. So Irwin Allen was a producer, director, writer. You get it. You get the gist here. But his thing was making disaster movies in the 70s and into the early 80s. The two best films that he probably did were The Towering Inferno and The Poseidon Adventure. Those were the two best ones. The rest of these here are kind of his lesser
I was
works.
going to say,
That's
and that's not in this set.
No, they're not. For a reason. But you do get the sequel to the Poseidon Adventure in here, which is
Ah.
not very good.
Mm.
But you've got uh, a group of, I think, was it 7 movies? Yes, 7 movies. And these titles are gonna jump
Dude,
right out at you.
these titles are amazing. They're just so
Yeah,
descriptive.
they're so descriptive. They just read to you.
Especially disc 6, where it's called The Night the Bridge Fell Down.
Yeah, I wonder what happened. So you've got disc 1 is Flood, disc 2 Fire, disc 3 Hanging by a Thread, disc 4 is Beyond the Poseidon Adventure, which is the sequel to the Poseidon Adventure. Disc 5 is When Time Ran Out. Disc 6 is like Steven just said, The Night the Bridge Fell Down, and then disc 7 is Cave In with exclamation point. You can imagine what that movie's about. Yeah, these movies are not shy in their regard to what they're about. They're about disasters that you got to survive. That's kind of it. I was able to watch 3 out of 7 of these. I watched Flood, I watched Fire, and I watched Beyond the Poseidon Adventure.
So you
So
got 2 water movies and a fire movie. I got you.
yeah, so Flood and Fire, I believe, are TV movies. You can tell because in the movie Flood, the flood doesn't happen until about an hour into the movie,
The
and the
budget.
movie is bare. In movie's like 90 something minutes long. Keep in mind, this is 1970s TV movies, which you can imagine did not have large budgets, not like today, where like today you've got like TV movies are made for millions of dollars. I'm pretty sure they weren't made for millions of dollars back in the
No.
70s. There's a reason why a lot of the 70s and 80s TV movies, and even 90s TV movies, haven't really gotten released on physical media too much, just because they were just they were just made to air on TV, and that was it. They weren't really made for any other commercial reason. But yeah, so Flood is, like you said, about a flood. This small town. Um, Yeah, the small town's dam is slowly breaking, and the mayor of the town, he's the typical mayor that you see in all of these types of movies. He's like he's like the mayor in Jaws, where
Mm.
he's like where he just refuses to address the situation directly
I see that
because
this is happening, but I you just can't. You can't
but
close it
I
down.
but I'm like, oh yeah, they're like, oh, the dam's gonna hold because it always holds, and also our 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 town relies on fishing, and if the dam breaks, we lose all the fish. And I'm like, and they just repeat that beat over and over again to where like the dam getting worse and worse. You got to do something, and this guy just doesn't want to do anything. And shocking here, people, the dam breaks and the town gets flooded and people die. It's not, but the movie stars Robert Culp, Martin Milner, Barbara Hershey is in the film. Young Barbara Hershey is in the film. Roddy McDowell is in the film as well, um, and Teresa Wright is also in the film. So you're getting like some actors that were bigger early on in their career and are kind of just looking for work now, or you're getting young actors just kind of starting out in Barbara Hershey. Um, and Robert Culp plays this guy who is he's a helicopter pilot. He's just like kind of flying around town, like transporting people, trying to rescue survivors, and trying to like essentially help this other guy who was badgering this mayor the whole time that the dam's gonna break, and he's like his buddy, and he's trying to help him out and like fixing things, but it's a disaster movie about a flood. That's what it is. And Fire is a similar way, except Fire takes out all of that subtlety and all of that buildup and is like, no, we're just gonna have this fire from the beginning of the movie all the way to the end. We're not gonna waste any time with this flood nonsense. We're just gonna have it. We're just gonna have it go now. And and then, but the premise of Fire is that um the the is that I think this fugitive or fugitives want to escape, and they need a distraction in order to escape, so they start this fire in this woods, and the fire ends up just going off and just being unstoppable, and you can't really do anything about it. And I know Ernest Borgnine is in this film, and he was kind of one of the most recognizable actors for me. And it was nice to see Ernest Borgnine in a film later on in his career. There's another Ernest Borgnine film that I want to talk about that I got to bring up that I forgot to tell Steven beforehand. So
Cool.
remind me I got to do that because he plays a much different character in that film than he does in this film, where he's just kind of one of the people trying to survive and trying to um, that contend with these forest fires. It's very interesting because we're still contending with forest fires now. I mean, if you've been around here for the last couple of weeks, there's been massive forest fires that have been recurring in Canada, and all of that smoke has been making its way down here, making the air just unbelievably unbreathable and unhealthy. Um, so that's kind of an interesting kind of modern day connection. But moving on to kind of the crown jewel, not really the crown jewel, the lesser crown jewel of what I watched was was Beyond the Poseidon Adventure. The cast of this movie is unbelievable, by the way. Um, I did read in the IMDb trivia notes that this is Sally Field's least favorite film of all of her work, and she only took it for the paycheck. So
Oh
that may
well,
lead you to believe of its quality. And apparently, she also said Michael Caine was the same way. But this film stars Michael Caine, Sally Field, Telly Savalas, Peter Boyle, Jack Warden, Shirley Jones, Carl Malden, Slim Pickens. Um, yeah, and this is I guess, direct sequel to the Poseidon Adventure because it literally takes place right after the end of the first movie. You literally see a little bit of the end of the first movie. It's more of a hint than anything. So as the people in the first film, as their story wraps up, these people enter. And in this film, you've got Michael Caine and Carl Malden and Sally Field are all on this tugboat together, and they see the Poseidon in the ocean, and it's tipped over, it's capsized, and all this kind of stuff. It's slowly going down, but in their infinite wisdom, they decide they're going to some stuff from it to make some money because they figure, hey, well, boat that size, there must have been some rich people on it, so we're gonna get some of the rich people stuff. So
Mm.
as this boat is literally on fire underwater and slowly sinking, they take absolutely no scuba gear whatsoever or any type of gear whatsoever and decide, let's enter this boat. But at the same time, Telly Savalas's crew also shows up and they want some stuff from the boat as well. So they all enter this boat together, and this thing is like there's explosions going on, there's fires going on, but they got to get some stuff. And they meet some people and some survivors on the way, and lo and behold, they get stuck inside and they have to escape. That's the Poseidon. That's Beyond the Poseidon Adventure.
Mm.
It's literally the same plot as the first film, where people
Damn.
get stuck in a boat and have to escape.
I can see why they just wanted to get the paycheck.
Yes, and it's kind of not. It's not a great movie, and the movie's almost 2 hours long.
Jesus Christ!
And it's just them going through like different compartments of the sinking ship the whole time. It's fine. It's cool to see all these actors in this movie together. I mean, that's fun if you know who these actors are, like Michael Caine and Sally Field and all these people, and see them all interact with one another. But it's just not. It's just not a great movie. There's just not a lot going on in it. And this was actually directed by Irwin Allen himself. So that is what I got out of this set here. But there's another 4 movies in it. Some of these movies are actually very long. Like, for example,
Yeah, god damn. The
uh,
Bridge That Fell Down is 180 minutes.
yeah, it's a 3 hour and like 1 minute. I'm assuming that was like a Saturday matinee type of special thing
How long did
in
how long did it
1980.
take for this goddamn bridge to fall?
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus, usually
I
when they
mean,
fall, they just fall.
I mean,
Fuck.
and it's like, damn, that must have taken up a whole Saturday just
Shit.
just to have that thing on. But yeah, that's the reason why I didn't get around to watching that. And then the
Just
cave in is
imagine. I
it's
just
2
imagine the
hours.
advertising for that. This week on, this week on Fox.
It's 1980. You know what I mean?
This week we're gonna have a 3-night event. The night the bridge fell down.
I guess so.
Mm.
But moving on from
Yeah,
that
please.
set, which actually does fascinate me, regardless of just
It's a cool idea for a set. I like the idea that they based it around disaster movies from this one director. I think that's cool.
I think 70 disaster movies are fascinating just
Yeah.
because like that's a whole genre that seemed to just crop up in the 70s, you know? And some of them are rather good. Like I said, the Poseidon Adventure is very good. Earthquake, good. The Towering Inferno, I think, is fantastic. You got Paul Newman and Steve McQueen in there, plus a bunch of other actors of the time. But that's like the A-list version of this. These are more like the B-list version. But I said, but the Beyond the Poseidon Adventure has like A-list people, at least A-list people to me. Like Sally Field has,
Yeah.
Oscars. Michael Caine is a legendary actor from a modern perspective.
I'm
Carl
sure.
Malden,
No,
same way.
it's a movie that started out as being an A picture and slowly became a B picture.
That's my guess. But moving on from there, we've got a movie called The Pack, which is a movie about dogs that kill people. That's the gist I get from it.
Jeez.
What happens is it says, wow, this is by the same guy who directed Enter the Dragon. Okay.
Shit.
Writer-director Robert Klaus, whose Enter the Dragon delivered hard-hitting action, whose deadly eyes provided gnawing rodent terror. I hear that. Combines both fright and fight in this survival tale where a walk in the woods becomes a long, dark journey into fear. Set on a remote island where vacationers have senselessly abandoned their unwanted pet dogs, the pack shows man's inhumanity coming back to haunt him with fanged fury. So, yeah, so these pets basically get their revenge on humanity by
I like it.
kicking their
I
ass.
feel
Good.
like I think I've heard of this film before, and
It does star Joe Don Baker, who was in Walking Tall and Goldeneye
yeah,
and The
It's-
Living Daylights.
It sounds familiar. I feel like I've definitely heard of this premise before. I need to seek this one out because it sounds kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, and then comes the worst movie I think I saw out of all of these, and I hate saying that because of the person who directed it and the people who are in it. Lost Souls is directed by cinematographer Janusz Kaminski, which name should be ringing bells in people's heads
Mm.
because he's probably one of the
Yeah,
greatest
Yeah.
cinematographers
I was
of
gonna
our
say
time.
Spielberg's guy. Yeah.
Yes. And he's done so much Spielberg stuff.
Yeah.
He's done Saving Private Ryan. He's done Schindler's List. He's done uh, Minority Report. He's done The Fabelmans, West Side Story, The Post. You can just see basically what Steven just said. All of Spielberg's stuff plus a
A
bunch of
lot of
other
it.
stuff.
Yeah.
Plus I mean, he did also shoot Little Giants, which is nice.
Amazing.
Amazing. So he's done so much great work. He's got Oscar nominations. He's got awards,
I don't.
through the roof.
Why does it just not work out for cinematographers and directing?
Some cinematographers it works, some it doesn't.
It doesn't seem to work out for most of them. It's like
Right.
it's. I mean, can you think of like any big time directors that started out as cinematographers?
John de Bont wasn't bad. He
Yeah, but
directed
I mean,
Speed.
I know he made Speed and everything, but I mean, that's. Did he make Speed? And that the
Yes, he
directors?
did. Yeah,
Yeah,
he did
that's it.
Speed.
That's it, though, right? That's
It's still a pretty damn good one.
good, but I mean, what else did he do?
He also, let me see, what else did he direct? Let's see, he didn't direct many things. He directed Speed 2 Cruise Control.
Okay,
Okay.
you're making this worse.
That's not going well. Twister.
Okay, Twister's good.
All right. He did direct Lara Croft Tomb Raider: The Cradle of
Who
Life,
cares
which
about
is
that?
the
That's
second
stupid.
one.
It's dumb.
That's about it.
So he made two,
and he
but-
directed The Haunting, which is a little underrated, but whatever.
Yeah, but it just doesn't seem to work out for some reason. I mean, cinematographers help make the movie look the way they do, but for some reason they don't. It's like they have a problem with storytelling or something. I don't know. It's
Yeah, I would have to do more research on it. I know some have tried and and many have failed.
I famously think of Nolan.
I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah.
Who you say Wally Pfister?
Yeah, Wally Pfister.
Yes.
Who did his movie Transcendence and then just disappeared. Just like was like that didn't work.
Never
out.
heard from again. I was thinking of that in my head.
He did some of the TV stuff. I think he worked on Westworld or something. Didn't he work on Westworld a little bit or something?
I gotta look. I'm looking him up right now, but But yeah, for those of you who aren't in the know, Wally Pfister was Nolan's cinematographer from the very beginning of his career. Like he shot Memento, he shot Inception, he shot Batman Begins, The Prestige, The Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises, and then he went and tried to direct his own movie in Transcendence, and it just didn't work. It just wasn't good. And he's directed some other stuff since then. Like he directed 2 episodes of the Tick TV series that was on Amazon Prime, which was very good. And that's kind of about it. And then he did some commercials. Like he directed a Taco Bell commercial and a Hyundai car commercial. Yeah, I'm kind of, stretching it out here, kind of just grasping at straws. But yeah, it sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But in the sense of Lost Souls, it didn't work. Lost Souls is a movie that is a big swing and miss to the point where it got to the end of this movie, and I felt angry that I wasted my time watching this movie.
Damn.
So let me just talk about it a little bit. So, movie Lost Souls came out in the year 2000, directed by Janusz Kaminski, starring Winona Ryder, Ben Chaplin, who's an actor I don't think a lot of people know. Philip Baker Hall is in this film. Elias Koteas is in this film. John Hurt is in it for a little bit. But the premise of this movie isn't bad. So a Catholic teacher meets an atheist journalist. The Catholic teacher is portrayed by Winona Ryder. The atheist journalist is Ben Chaplin. And she believes that he is the Antichrist. The beginning of this movie opens up with an exorcism where there is this prisoner in this mental hospital prison that they perform this. They believe he's possessed. So Winona Ryder and a couple of priests perform this exorcism, and in it she also finds her journals, and she breaks this code, which is believed to be who the identity of the Antichrist is, and it is this character portrayed by Ben Chaplin, this atheist journalist who's going to be possessed by the devil at a certain time, and the devil is going to walk the earth. The whole movie takes that idea and just it just goes through it over and over and over again, and the plot never moves. The plot never gets out of a neutral first gear type of story. Not even the third act, I think, is exciting. It just never molds past that point. I mean, things happen, like she meets this guy, she tells him, and then he just grapples with this idea that this is going to happen. And they grapple with the idea that this guy's going to be possessed by Satan, and that's the movie. And I'm literally that's it. And it's like, and I was like, when is the plot going to kick in? And it just never did. And then the movie ends, and I was just like, what a waste. What a waste of time. It was for a movie that has such an interesting, devil possession, demonic possession, good versus evil type of premise, all this stuff, and then for an hour and 37 minutes to go by and for them to do nothing with it and for it to be this dull is such a misfire. Such a misfire, I think. And it's shot in such an interesting way and has such an interesting aesthetic to it, where it's done in this 2000s super washed out, almost not even sepia tone, but just washed out colors, washed out atmosphere. If you just go on the IMDb page right now, they've got the trailer playing. That's the way this movie looks. That's the aesthetic of it. It's almost damn near washed out to the point of being black and white. Like that's how much it's washed out. Yeah, it's not a very good movie. So I very much a swing and a miss. Swing and a miss for me. So next we've got something a little bit different, a little more modern. What's love got to do with it? Got to do with it. I thought for a second that this was the 1990s movie that was based off of the life of Tina Turner. But no, it's not. No, it is not. It is the more modern movie from 2023, starring Lily James.
Wow, who was wanting this on Blu-ray?
I have no idea. So, two childhood friends, now in their 30s, must decide whether to follow their heads or hearts once the man decides to follow his parents' advice and enter into an arranged marriage in Pakistan. I think I've seen the trailers for this.
I don't even know what this is. Like it's sad that it's a 2023 movie and I've never heard of it. That's how much crap is coming out these days.
Oh yeah, but I think it may have come. I feel like it's a streaming movie. I don't know why.
Wow. Well, I like Lily James. I like her. But yeah, this is totally. I've never heard of this movie. I mean, of course, I've heard the title before, but I've never heard of.
It's a romantic.
Yeah.
Comedy. I mean, the romantic comedies are trying to make a bit of a comeback. I don't think it ever really went anywhere, but still.
Well, they stopped caring about them, so everyone that they made was just cookie cutter.
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen the trailer for this. So the IMDb synopsis is much more descriptive and much more of the film that I saw. So, in London, an award-winning filmmaker documents her best friend's journey into an assisted marriage or arranged marriage in line with his family's Pakistani heritage. In the process, she challenges her own attitude towards relationships. That is, that's a much better premise than whatever the heck
that sounds better, yeah.
Yeah, and if you see the trailer for this, you kind of understand what type of movie it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Starring Lily James, starring Mim Shaikh. Anywho, yeah, Emma Thompson's in the film as well. It is what it, yeah, I don't anticipate myself actually buying this. But something I do anticipate myself buying is, I talked about this movie many times, and I guess they heard me. The Lost City of Z is getting a 4K UHD release. I cannot believe that.
Finally, the Robert Pattinson movie that doesn't have a 4K. No, I'm just kidding. There's a few other ones. But yeah, this is kind of one of them, kind of like, I think, underrated movies from, what's the director? Is it James Gray? I believe.
I think you're right.
Yeah, James Gray, who did We Own the Night. He did some underrated films too. Just in general, his whole career feels underrated.
I mean, I've talked about him a few times on here. Yeah, he did.
He did that one Brad Pitt space movie, like.
Yeah, Ad Astra.
Yeah, Ad
His
Astra.
recent film Armageddon Time was not
Still
that
haven't
great.
seen it. Still haven't seen
I've
it.
seen it, it's not that great. But before Ad Astra, he did, um yeah, he did, like you just said, We Own the Night, Lost City of Z,
He did
and
that other Mark Wahlberg movie that's in the neo noir set. The oh man, I'm blanking on it. It's got him and Joaquin Phoenix in it.
oh, yeah, I think I know
Before
exactly.
it's before We Own the Night. It's in the
Yeah,
90s.
let me go to his IMDb
98.
credits. That would be much easier. Yeah, The Yards.
The Yards, yeah.
Yeah, that came out in 2000. The Immigrants is another film with Joaquin Phoenix, coincidentally again. I know that was on Netflix for the longest time. The Immigrant with, um, what's her name? With Marion Cotillard, Jeremy Renner's in it, Joaquin Phoenix, like I just said. Um, Yeah, I think James Gray is kind of a bit of an underrated director, but Lost City of Z, I think, is an underrated film. For those of you who haven't seen
Yeah.
it, the Blu-ray's been like pretty cheap for the longest time. So, a true life drama centering on British explorer Major Percival Fawcett, who disappeared while searching for a mysterious city in the Amazon in the 1920s. It is based on a true story. This guy really did disappear. Charlie Hunnam is in the film. Robert Pattinson in the film. Young Tom Holland is in this movie. Ian McDermott from Star Wars fame, Angus McFadden, who's the character actor that I've seen pop up in many things. He was in Braveheart, Angus McFadden, I believe. Yeah, I've always really liked this movie ever since I saw it. This movie came out in 2016, flew way under the radar at that time. I think it's flown under the radar ever since. It is 2 hours and 21 minutes, so it's a bit of a longer film, but I really like it. Charlie Hunnam, they've been trying to turn him into like an action star or a movie star or something like that, when his roots was really doing drama on television in Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
So they should probably put him in more dramatic work. I know he's done a bit work with Guy Ritchie. Guy Ritchie seems
Yeah.
him and Guy Ritchie seem to be buddy buddy. I still think that King Arthur movie is super underrated.
Yeah.
I'm one of the few true fans of that movie.
Yeah.
I still have my Blu-ray kicking around here, which every time I look at it, I'm like, damn, what could have been? What could have been?
You should kick it around. You don't need that in your collection.
I gotta get all my Guy Ritchie. I gotta actually
I know.
he came out with 2 movies last year, right? Or 2 movies
Yeah, I know.
this year? I don't know. It's one of those where like it came
Yeah,
out.
he did The Covenant and he did the what's the other heisty movie?
Was it Operation
Operation Wang Chung?
Yeah, 2 completely opposite movies. Like Operation Fortune Rue de Guerre, completely different film. One is like Operation Rue de Guerre is like a mystery detective story caper in the vein of like what Ryan Johnson's doing,
Yeah.
and the other film was like a war film drama, which was The Covenant. Completely different tones, but directed by the same person. But yeah, and they both came out this year. He's working double time.
Yeah. Well, that's it for the Scream Factory, Shout Factory stuff. It's an interesting slate, a little bit all over the place. But I think a little bit for everybody. Slocky to,
Yeah, you go everywhere from like the 70s through modern day, pretty much.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
So we've got some other stuff here from our good friends over at Radiance. They got their October announcements, one of which we've already talked about. But they decided to add 2 more, Stephen, right?
Yes,
to that October
two
slate.
2 more October slate. First one we have here is a Visible Secret from I think 2001. And the second one we have is The Horrible Dr. Hichcock from 1962, starring, I believe, Robert Fleming.
Yes, it is.
And, of course, the...
Barbara Steele.
Yeah, I was going to say Barbara Steele, the famous Barbara Steele, who's, Black Sunday. She's done a lot. She's iconic for the genre, Italian horror genre. I saw this one. I wanted to watch Visible Secret. I was trying to watch it. I got about 20, 30 minutes in. My internet started messing around. I was like, I don't have time for this. So I can tell you that the 20, 30 minutes I watched, pretty interesting, pretty good. But let's talk about Horrible Dr. Hitchcock.
Yeah, so the movie is a horror film. Um, it's a movie dealing with some dark and twisted shit. It's a little hammer horror-y. So this Dr. Hitchcock, not the Hitchcock, but you know what I'm saying here. Um, he has a bit of a fetish, Stephen. Bit of an odd fetish, if you will. Necrophilia seems to be his thing. Uh, and one day, early on in the movie, it goes a little too far, and his wife dies during their little necrophiliac sex games that they got going on. And then the movie flash forwards some years later, and he's got a new wife portrayed by Barbara Steele, and he's trying to play those similar games unbeknownst to her, and also trying to revive the dead body of his first wife using her. I believe that is the gist of the film. And the whole time she's kind of slowly getting manipulated and going kind of crazy over what's happening to her. Like she thinks she's seeing things at night and things are being done to her without her knowing. And she's just going like having this downward spiral. And yeah, it's because of the person she married is a really, screwed up individual. and and yeah, what did you think of the movie, Steven?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought the atmosphere was good. It's
It's very gothic. Very
yeah, very
gothic.
gothic, very and it's well paced, and it's not it really keeps your attention the whole time. I mean, it I like these type of gothic kind of psychological horror movies where they're not just trying to scare you with visuals, but they're spending time. I mean, especially with it also talks it in the description here. It brings up the movie Body in the Whip. Is and it kind of has that kind of a little bit of that movie in there as well.
Well, it was directed by the same. It was written by the same guy, Ernesto Gastaldi.
There,
He
yeah.
directed. He wrote the Whip in
Or
the
I'm
Body.
sorry, the Whip in the Body. My dyslexia. The Whip in the
Mm.
Body. Yeah, it's got the same vibes of that movie. It really does. It's got that kind of psychological edge that movie has, and yeah, it'd be a good double feature. That would be a good double feature, and
Yeah, and
yeah.
this is coming with two discs. The first disc has the 87-minute export version, The Terror of Dr. Hitchcock, with extras. The second disc has, exclusive to the limited edition, the re-recorded 76-minute North American version of The Horror of Dr. Hitchcock, and then the English dub of the complete 87-minute Italian cut Raptus, The Secret of Dr. Hitchcock. And this got a new interview with the screenwriter. Coincidentally, we were just talking about him. It's got an audio commentary with Kat Ellinger, visual essay in here as well. And this also had a Blu-ray release by Kino by Olive back in 2016. Wow. Um, so it's been released on Blu-ray here before, but not with such extensive extras and stuff like that. I believe that release had nothing. So if you have that release, this is a worthy upgrade. Um, and I do want to make note that these are both coming out in October 24th in the US and 23rd, I think, in the UK, something like that. But I do also want to make note that Visible Secret is only getting one pressing. It's only getting a limited edition version, will not be reissued as a standard edition. So once this sells out, it's gone.
Hmm.
That's what they're said down here. The other release that they're releasing that month is the film that we already talked about, Stephen. Was it called Messiah of Evil? Yes. Messiah of Evil is the film that we talked about before. Remember that kind of 70s um um like cult, like satanic cult type film. That's also getting released in October, and the reason why I'm bringing that up because you can buy a package with all three of these. Plus, there is another film that they did not announce yet that's part of this as well. So October seems to be a pretty busy month for Radiance films.
That's good. That's good information. I didn't know anything about that single pressing thing. So yeah, I'll definitely make sure I grab that when it first drops, so I don't miss out on that release. All right. Well, our last slate we got here is just a couple releases from Umbrella Entertainment. Very exciting. One of these is very exciting release though, and that let's start with that exciting one. We are finally getting a nice Blu-ray set here of the Pusher trilogy, directed by our man. What's his name? Nicholas Winding Refn.
Yes.
These are films that I haven't seen yet, but I've always heard about how cool they are, and I can't wait to get this set and watch them for the first time. Please tell us about the Pusher trilogy, Andrew.
Yeah, so the Pusher Trilogy is a set of 3 films done by Nicholas Winding Refn. I think Pusher may have been his first film. I'm gonna look that up right now, but Pusher is a movie about a guy who it says a drug pusher grows increasingly desperate after a botched deal leaves him with a large debt to a ruthless drug lord. Uh, yeah, that's the problem. That seems like a problem.
A little
Um,
bit.
a little bit. So the Pusher trilogy, the way in which it's structured is they're not necessarily direct sequels to one another, but each film is all set within the same world, and you see the characters. You see the characters in each of the films a little bit. I'll explain that in a second. For example, in the first film, Mads Mikkelsen plays a character. You see him show up, and you see him interact with our main character from the first film. And then in the second film is entirely about the Mads Mikkelsen character and what he's doing. And then in the third film is about this like crime lord, this kind of gangster guy who you saw in the first film and in the second film, I believe as well. So the third film is about him. So that's the way in which it's structured. So they're kind of loosely connected with one another. The second film, obviously, being I think the one most people would be interested in because it stars Mads Mikkelsen. I believe this is some of his earliest work, and it's him just starting out, and it's fantastic work, and it's dark, gritty, stylized, films from Nicholas Winding Refn's home place. I forgot where he's actually from. Is it from Sweden? Is he from
Uh,
Sweden?
it's is it maybe he's Danish?
I think you're right. I think Denmark. I think you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
It is from the it is for the country of origin for Pusher is Denmark.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, this is something I've been wanting to get in my collection for many years. It's only been available on DVD here in the States. The only Blu-ray release of this Pusher trilogy was released in Germany some years ago. That is it. So this is like a much welcome uh release for me. I mean, for years I've been talking about it with people that I'm hoping that somebody would put this out, somebody would put this out. And finally we do have it. So Pusher came out in 96, Pusher 2 came out in 2004, and then right after that Pusher 3 came out in 2005. Um and then you get into his other work. For me, I became a Nicholas Winding Refn fan after the movie Drive came out. It's kind of when I discovered
Yeah.
him, and then I went back and watched all of his stuff. Like I watched this, I watched Valhalla Rising, I watched Bronson with um what
Tom
with Tom
Hardy.
Hardy.
Yeah,
It's a freaking amazing movie. I think about that movie like every week.
it's
It's just an
weird.
insane movie the way it's made. Incredible work. Um, and then of course I've been following up with reference filmography for the last several years. The Neon Demon, I saw it in theaters actually. That's an experience, by the way, for people who have seen the Neon Demon.
It's good.
Yeah, I have the Blu-ray. Only God Forgives was a movie that was very challenging to people because it was the movie after he did Drive. I guess people were kind of thinking it was going to be similar in vein to Drive because it starred Ryan Gosling, and it ended up being this neon fever dream avant-garde art house film of incredible insanity. Like I thought it was brilliant film. He also did 2 recent television series, which is Too Old to Die Young, which I think he did, which I think is on Amazon Prime, and then Copenhagen Cowboy, which was Netflix. So that's been what he's been doing over the last several years, but he's also been producing a lot of these releases that we keep talking
Yeah, we keep
about.
getting yeah.
We
He's
keep
done
seeing
some
his name
Blu-ray
show
rele
up.
he's done some stuff with Indicator. He did a couple things with Indicator. He did the Night Tide. He also did
Yeah, he
another
just
one.
that big box set that just came out from them, that one about that entire family's work.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was interesting. I was just watching Just the Discs talk about it today, and I can't remember what it is.
Is
Um,
it the
yeah,
Almond
the almond. Um,
family
oh boy, how do you
films,
spell
yeah.
that?
I think he also produced another smaller release that was it's like Spring Night, something like that, Spring something. It's a smaller release from Indicator, but
Right.
yeah.
But yeah, hold on. Let me go to Indicator's site because it's gonna. What's crazy is I was actually just looking at their releases earlier today, as I'm prone to do. I just go on these escapades of online browsing and not really buying anything, but I get into these deep rabbit holes of like releases by companies, by directors, by this, by that. And I was on Indicator today because Just the Discs was doing a video on the Mexico Macabre set, the From Hollywood to Heaven, the lost and saved films of the Ormond family.
Orman.
That
Yeah.
release that Refn had his name in. The third box set that Just the Discs was talking about was the Michael J. Murphy set, which if you break that set down, my goodness, that set is massive.
Yeah.
Just the amount of work that must have gone into that thing must be incredible. I know Steven has it, and it takes up a huge chunk on his shelf. He loves it.
No. No.
No,
It's
uh,
fine. It's fine.
it's but, back to the Pusher trilogy. So this has each film in its own individual case. That's what the picture suggests. It does come with some swag, I guess, only available from the Umbrella web store if you're interested. This is still available now, but it could sell out at any moment. You get a 48-page bound book, custom designed outer rigid slipcase, 8 poster cards, 2 by A3 reversible posters, limited edition numbered release. And you do get each film. Each film has an audio commentary. Each film has some type of featurette and some type of video essay by Howard S. Berger on each of the releases. So we're at least getting some type of work for this. But for me, just to own these movies in HD quality or in any better quality than DVD is, you know, everything for me. So
Yeah.
it was awesome. That's such awesome. But the other release we've got, something completely different, is Hercules Returns.
No, it falls right in line with that movie. The movies,
Holy
yeah.
nay. So, this is an interesting movie that I had never heard about until now. And when I went on to Letterboxd to do, my usual research on it, and just to see, just to add to my watch list and to see what the reviews look like and all that kind of stuff. This is a very well liked movie, very well liked. And the title Hercules Returns really doesn't tell you shit about this movie. This movie is, first of all, I believe it came out in 1993, and it is a comedy unlike anything I've quite seen before. So what happens is at the beginning of this movie, this character, Brad McBain, first of all, this is an Australian film. He is an employee at Australia's largest cinema chain. And at the beginning of this movie, he's sitting at like this board meeting or this pitch meeting or this whatever meeting about how this company is going to do all these big like renovations and all these big things with this big cinema chain, all this BS, right? He's just sitting there completely uninterested in this nonsense. And he decides that he's going to start his own movie theater. And he ends up getting a movie print from this big chain company, but they're not happy that he kind of basically tell them to F off and he quit. And so they give him an undubbed and unsubbed um version of an Italian film called Hercules Returns. So he's having this big movie premiere. Like everybody's showing up in like suits and ties and all this kind of stuff. And his friend, and this woman all decide to in in real time as the movie is playing to dub over the movie themselves while it's being watched in the theater. So the movie then shifts into us watching this movie of the Hercules Returns with their dubbing. and it is just hilarious because it's so ridiculous and over the top, and they're just making up stories, making up conversations, making up all this stuff, and it's basically like a version of Mystery Science Theater 3000 essentially, but just taking it one step further and just dubbing over a bad movie yourself. And that's the entirety of the movie. That's what this
Hmm.
movie is. And yeah, I
Okay.
I can't explain it any more than that. And the plot of Hercules Returns is completely irrelevant. Like you don't even need to know what the plot of the movie within the movie is. You just sit back and just laugh your ass off at just the hilarity that ensues. That's it.
Okay. Well, I like something like that every once in a while.
Yeah,
Something
it's a
where I
bit
don't feel
different.
like I have to follow it too closely, and just
Yeah, and I noticed one of the actors in the movie is uh Bruce Spence, who was in Mad Max 2, also known as Road Warrior. He plays the guy with like the flying machine with the goggles
yeah.
in Mad Max 2. I don't know how long it's been since you've seen that movie,
It's
but if you've seen him, you know him. He's an
yeah,
Australian
yeah,
actor. Um, but he plays the projectionist in the movie, and he's one of the guys just overdubbing with them. But this also comes with a bunch of swag as well. 48-page bound book, custom designed outer ridge slipcase. You're getting the gist here. Custom designed slipcase, 8 art cards, reversible poster, and that's only if you get the limited edition, I believe, from their website. I believe if that sells out, then they'll just release it, by itself. Same thing, I think, with the Pusher trilogy as well. Yeah, it's got a new audio commentary with cast and crew. Includes English dub of the original Italian film, Samson and His Mighty Challenge. That's what the movie is. Um, what an absurdly interesting movie that I had never heard of until now.
Hmm. Awesome.
But yeah, that's that. Um, there was moving on from Radiance, Stephen, if you don't mind. Um,
We were
th-
in Umbrella, but okay.
we were doing Umbrella. See, my mind is completely gone. Um, so there was another one. Remember, I did mention Ernest Borgnine earlier.
Yes.
I'm not gonna leave Ernest Borgnine waiting in the wings here. So there is a release coming from VSI or VS, oh, no, not VSI, VCI or VCI Entertainment, however you want to, or VCI Classics, called A Bullet for Sandoval. I wanted to mention this earlier, completely forgot about it. And this is a movie from 1969, and it's a bit of a spaghetti western, I would say, maybe very much so. So this movie stars Ernest Borgnine. He's kind of the only one in the movie of note. Directed by Julio Bukes. And it's this like gritty spaghetti western from '69. So a soldier ends up. So it takes place during the Civil War. A soldier deserts his crew because he wants to travel uh, back to where his girlfriend lives because he finds out that she's pregnant and that she had a baby and he wants to go be with her and stuff. He gets an urgent message from her, but he has to essentially, you know, abandon it, go rogue, what's that illegal term? Anywho, he just bounces and
AWOL. AWOL.
AWOL, yeah, he just goes AWOL and he goes down to Mexico, I believe. And when he gets there, he finds out that she has passed away, but her father is now in custody of the baby, and the father happens to be Ernest Borgnine, and he is a piece of crap. He is a just an asshole, hates him, hates the baby, hates that his daughter had a baby, hates just hate like he hates everything in this movie to the point where he's yelling at the maid to completely forget that his daughter ever existed. That's how much of a piece of shit Ernest Borgnine is in this movie. And uh he ends up giving the baby over to the father, who's gone AWOL, and the baby ends up passing away because the town in which they live in has been stricken with a bout of cholera. So every place that this guy goes to get food and get supplies for the baby, for him and his journey, they hear that that he came from this town and just kick him out. So the baby dies, and he decides to go on a revenge tour and just decides to go on murdering everybody that wouldn't help him out, including the Ernest Borgnine character. So the rest of the plot of the movie is a battle of wills and a literal battle between Ernest Borgnine and this guy who was spurned by everybody and who's just vengeful and pissed at the world, and they go head to head against each other, and that's this movie. But I'd never seen Ernest Borgnine in such a role where he's such a piece of crap. that I
It
thought it was fascinating.
you won me over on this one. I'm glad you brought it up because it
It's
sounds
it's
kind of
a
cool.
it's a and of course the movie is dated in many of its aspects. For example, Ernest Borgnine is supposed to be Mexican, but no, he just has a tan
He's done
and
that
is
a few
talking like
times. I
Ernest
think he's done that
Borgnine.
a few times in his career. I think he's played Mexican a few times.
Yeah, it's one of those things where they don't even like attempt Southern accents. They don't even attempt Mexican accents. They just like call people gringos, and I'm like, but you're white as well. This doesn't make any sense. But it's
Yeah.
fine. It's fine. I didn't mind the movie, but it's like it's a dark movie, like I was just pitching. But that's a Bullet for Sandoval is the name of the movie. Because I
Okay.
think Ernest Borgnine's character, I think his name's Sandoval, and he's got a bullet with his name on it, I guess. Um, yeah, that's a bullet. And VCI is also having another film come out called The Gamblers from 1970. Um, but I didn't get a chance to watch that film, so I'm not sure what it's about. Other than I'm assuming it's about gambling.
Mm.
It's from 1970, directed by Nikolai Gogol. A team of professional card sharks set out to fleece a wealthy aristocrat of his savings and receive an IOU in payment. That's not great. Which turns out to be worthless. They usually are. An interesting international cast and setting in a beautiful downtown Dubrovnik, a resort town in Yugoslavia, makes for an enjoyable caper. That's the pitch they have here on Blu-ray.com. I don't know what it was about gambling movies in the 70s, but
Yeah, I
you
know,
got this
right?
movie, you got The Gambler, you've got
People,
The Sting.
our economy was a lot better then, at the time in the
I
80s.
guess. Yeah.
So
I guess
people were
everybody had
just
money to
spending money
gamble.
and gambling money, and it was just, yeah,
Ironically, gambling is still a very popular thing to do, especially
yeah.
online poker. And then, of course, there's sports betting. Sports gambling is getting larger and larger now and whatnot. Um, yeah. I like to
Mm.
gamble with life, though. That's where the real stakes
Oh,
are.
Jesus Christ. So, all right, Ethan Hunt. I know you're just talking about Mission Impossible before the recording. I'm like, unfortunately, I ain't gonna be able to go see it, but I am gonna go do the Barbie. Before so I can tell everybody, I'm doing the Barbie Oppenheimer double feature.
Nice.
So that'll be fun.
Or in your case, you're doing the Oppenheimer then Barbie double feature.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound good. It's got to be Barbenheimer or whatever, however
Yeah,
they're naming
true.
it.
Or Arpen Barbie? Doesn't sound good.
ARPA,
Oppen
ARPA,
Barbie?
ARBA, ARPA,
Yeah,
ARBA. I don't
doesn't
know. It
sound good.
sounds terrible. But that is it for Spy Number 106 of Chasing Labels. Once again, thanks to Amelia, aka Mistress of the Real, for talking with us, chatting with us, chit chatting, talking with us. Love that whole thing that she. I mean, like, she's so nerdy about film that I loved it. I mean, to the point of collecting her own film reels. I mean, that's as nerdy as it gets.
Very true.
But thanks to her again, and of course, thanks to all you guys for listening. Andrew, where you can be found? Where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at Kevzilla06 for as long as that's I talk about the Poseidon adventure. I think it's going down with the Poseidon. But you can find me on there, and you can find me on our YouTube channel, Chasing Labels, where I just uploaded the my trip to the Criterion sale at Barnes & Noble. The 50% off Criterion sale is going on now at Barnes & Noble. I made my usual traditional video for that, so that's up now. Check it out if you want. It's only about 10 minutes long. And I just, go through my store and see what they've got. I was very happy with the selection that they had.
Cool. I'm glad your Barnes and Nobles is set up nice for you. Mine isn't. So I'm not going to be going to my Barnes and Noble. It's terrible. But you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings, or at the other Chasing Labels pages, whether it's our Instagram, our Twitter page. You can find the audio for the podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and other places. Thanks again for listening, and hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.